Sort of Coming Chapter 10:10. In the early morning the sky is bright. The Taoist priest who was about to get out of bed began to act as a demon. I saw the Taoist priest holding a peachwood sword, stepping on the gang and chanting a Tao Ju copied from nowhere. Please listen to me, there is too much immortality in the ancient times, the sun and the moon are shining together, the mountains and rivers are magnificent, and it is made into a golden elixir with no leaks and fights with dragons and snakes. The Taoist priest shook out a sweeping leg, rolled up some fallen leaves on the ground, and then a golden rooster stood alone, handing out a sword in his right hand, and a leaf just stopped at the tip of the sword. Clear, light, turbid, heavy, yin and yang, the sky is high and the earth is thick and spiritual. A little spiritual light makes a candle like a cloud blooming all over the sky, rushing like a decree, put the universe into one sleeve. The Taoist priest shook his sword flower, through his sleeve with his left hand, twisted his body, pointed the sword to the sky, and at the same time tried to roll the leaf into his sleeve, probably because he had not mastered his strength. The leaf swirled in the air but failed to do so. It's okay to put it in the sleeve, the Taoist priest has his own remedy, a jump, a high kick, the fingers of the left hand close together, and the tip of the sword points elsewhere. The wine, color, wealth and energy are far away. Yun Peng Yuyo Sun Moon Companion, pure yang accumulates yin virtue. Xuanhuan turns the axis of the earth, Qiangjing Xinjiu, and Master Fengxian is here to rescue. Shui Rui was speechless for a long time, and suddenly felt a little pity for this Taoist priest who seemed to go mad after drinking a little wine. Yesterday the Taoist priest and the young man who said the picture in the spring were so snobbish, more or less difficult. She sighed, "Don't mess around like that, it'll just drive you out of the house." I saw that the Taoist priest finally stopped his figure, put one hand behind him, put the other hand and fingers together in front of him, and snorted coldly with his nasal voice. Shui Rui is not happy all of a sudden. You dare to make further progress. Can you really be an old lady begging you to stay? The middle-aged Taoist priest put away the peachwood sword and threw it at the mud. He was thinking about the sword technique of hitting the ground with one hand, but the strength was not enough or the angle was wrong. Still falling. Shui Rui still had some grudges in her heart and asked, "Are you really able to draw that kind of 3 official talismans?" Last night she asked Judge Hong and Ji Xiaoping. The 2 high-ranking officials of the city god temple shook their heads, saying that this kind of talisman was unheard of. In the end, Judge Hong only said that maybe the talismans on the top of the mountain should not have secret legends, and they must be in the upper 5 realms, which may be feasible. Otherwise, ordinary cultivators of talismans, even the kind of land gods with profound Taoism, would not be able to draw such effects. As talisman. The Taoist priest shook his head and pointed to the peachwood sword lying on the ground. You can draw a talisman, but you are not very sure about the talisman. Even if you use the talisman to successfully connect yin and yang, pass the gentleman of the temple of the city god, and then want to pass the test in the underworld, it is extremely difficult, and to use an inappropriate analogy, it is somewhat similar to beheading the officials of this dynasty with the sword of Shangfang from the previous dynasty. Shui Rui immediately raised her eyebrows, she was indeed a liar. The Taoist priest immediately added, "But the poor Taoist has a good friend who is amazing. He has great supernatural powers and can speak and follow the law." Shui Rui sneered and said, "Aren't you bragging about not making drafts? Can you still know such a friend on the mountain?" "Blessed immeasurable heavenly venerate," the Taoist said with one hand, "it's definitely not nonsense. The friends on the mountain of the poor Taoist have a few extremely powerful characters." Shui Rui asked, "For example?" The Taoist priest said, "If there is a chance in the future, I will introduce a friend named Zhong to meet Miss Shui." Shui Rui wondered, "What's your identity? Could it be a genealogical cultivator from a certain immortal mansion?" The Taoist smiled and said, "You will know when you meet. It doesn't matter what your identity is. Heroes don't care about their origins. Heroes don't ask where they come from." Seeing that this Taoist priest didn't seem to be joking, Shui Rui had a new question. "Are you really going to help that boy? What are you trying to do?" The Taoist priest said, "What people see with their eyes is heaven and earth." Shui Rui was confused. "What do you mean?" The Taoist priest had to explain. "A certain expert said that my generation of Taoist monks, if they can help one person in front of them, can help the whole world. On a trip abroad, I chatted a lot with Zheng Juzhong and Li Shixing before, and when I chatted with people again I would inevitably lose a little patience." Shui Rui was silent for a moment. "Who said that?" The Taoist said with a smile, "It's far away in the sky and close in front of you." Shui Rui's face darkened. The Taoist priest said, "I believe that Miss Shui also sees some points. The young man's life is poor now just because of his rough life, his life has been plundered by many big and small calamities, so now outsiders give him extra, whether it is money or other. Teenagers may not be able to catch it, and it is very easy to turn misfortune instead of good fortune. It is not harmful to help the poor in the market, and it is a good and kind deed to accumulate een and good fortune. The giant lake is like a stream, and the lake water flows back into the stream. If the latter has a thick life like a small stream, the waterbed is wide and can bear the load. It is the method of immortality on the mountain. What hurts is the root and yang of a person, which is the so-called unfortunate consumption of the old saying. This principle must be observed, and it is necessary to be cautious. Fortunately, the thickness of life, the increase or decrease of fortune, longevity are not set in stone. In the eyes of the poor, he is a person who has a poor life but is blessed. In short, he has a late blessing. He does not owe the sky, he is not ashamed of the earth, he does not take people as rich, and he does not give in to people as precious. This is why the poor did yesterday. The root of the saying, God helps those who help themselves. Shui Rui nodded, but in fact she didn't see the fate of the young man at all. She was just a ghost, neither a warrior nor an official of the temple of the city god. How could she see these mysterious numerology? She hesitated. Then me and Jianghu? The Taoist said with a smile. Jianghu has the protection of his ancestors, and he himself is a person in a blue sarong. Miss Shui gave him a fairy family fate, and Jianghu can also accept it. She asked, is there really no sequelae? After all, she is a ghost, but the teenager is a human being. The Taoist priest said, isn't yin and yang only in geography and not in people's hearts? Miss Shui, don't get the order wrong, put the cart before the horse. Shui Rui breathed a sigh of relief. The first time she discovered this fake Taoist priest, it seemed that she still had some real skills. The Taoist priest asked, Miss Shui, since you are not afraid of the scorching sun and wind, why do you stay here and linger? For a small country like Xuanhuan, it is more than enough for a Sevuing cultivator to find a dojo with abundant spiritual energy and establish a sect. Although Shui Rui is a ghost, since she is able to have a close relationship with the judge of the city's capital city and the chief officer of the yin-yang division, she thinks that she is not lacking in yin and virtue. Yes, being a mountain goddess is the best choice. Shui Rui said vaguely, at first I made a bet with someone to learn a poem written on red leaves from the ancients, and was picked up by someone inadvertently, and I made an oath with him in a temple. Year after year the treasure fan is idle, living up to the bright moon and breeze. Spring and autumn come, the chills are mournful, speechless and condensed. Geese pass by and the moon is like a hook. The Taoist priest hesitated for a moment, carefully mulling over his words, and asked, Miss Shui, are you proficient in sentence reading? Shui Rui smiled and said, it's all right. I'm relatively interested in exegesis. I have nothing to do and I have read a lot of works by former sages. Shui Rui would not be embarrassed to discuss exegesis with her, she considered herself an expert. This involved Jianghu, a young man next door. He treasured a copybook of ancestral inheritance, with a total of 36 characters and no signature, but was praised by Judge Hong as 36 Liju. This copybook is also the foundation of the young man's way. It's a pity that Jianghu's aptitude is average and his progress is slow. Now he can be regarded as a monk of the second realm. And these 36 words can be roughly divided into 2 sentences, and the content of the 2 sentences is quite obscure, which involves exegesis skills. She explained the deep meaning to Jianghu based on her own sentence, and then helped Jianghu embark on the path of Taoism according to a superior guidance method contained in the 36 characters of the copybook. The Taoist smiled and said, when I was young I once heard a friend, half an elder, talk about the relationship between words, sentences and meanings. He said that every word composed of every sentence has weight. I just lived there but I didn't feel deeply. Later I found out that when Xing originally authored The Rectification of the Name, and I saw it in it back then. Famous is a true metaphor and the name is used. It is tired to write and the name is beautiful. Usually all are well known. Seeing this I suddenly realized it. Shui Rui had a proud look on her face and pointed to the peachwood sword on the ground. Stop talking nonsense, you will know how to show off your knowledge, hurry up, use the sword as a pen, write the content and I will help you break the sentence. At the moment, Qin Pingan was a little depressed, and he didn't know how to open his mouth for a while. The content of the copybook that was treasured by Shui Rui and the teenager was actually not complicated. Anyway, there were only 36 words, and there was indeed an ancient guide hidden in it. Law and Qin Pingan just glanced at it and looked at the meaning of Taoism, and found that there is some Taoism with one of the 3 mountains and the Confucian temple ritual system. Of course, Qin Pingan will not covet this Tao Shu of the magic weapon. But the problem is that Shui Rui, a half-hearted exegesis expert, can't say that she is completely wrong, but there must be errors in making a sentence for jianghu. In Taoism on the mountain, the difference of a word often leads to 1,000 miles off topic. Otherwise, why would there be one word on the mountain? Master, this kind of chi trainer? That is to say, the contents of the copybook and the Taoist sages are extremely pure and generous. If Jianghu followed Shui Rui's preaching, teaching and demystifying to practice, it is estimated that he would lead the way and lead to the devil. Although Jianghu's aptitude is average, he is not a genius of Taoism, and it will be extremely difficult to enter the cave in the future. However, under the preaching of Shui Rui, the young man has practiced this guidance technique since he was a child. Explain the problem. Qin Pingan thought about it. That's all. He was dismissed from the house as a person with ulterior motives, and he said straight to the point, Miss Shui, that Zheng Sinong is naturally a great scholar of classics, but he is in the history of Confucianism, in exegesis, many details need to be discussed. For example, some of his sentences have attracted a Confucian sage with the same surname of Zheng to refute word by word, so if Miss Shui copied Zheng Sinong's sentence reading, Law. Shui Rui's eyes were faint. Have you seen that copybook? Qin Pingan nodded and said, I've seen it. I also know that there is a guidance method hidden in the copybook. Shui Rui was silent. In the case of Mu Duo's repairing fire and banning the common kingdom, he held a candle in the temple in the palace, and gradually went east to Haishi to be in Lusha Xuanhuan and Xingjiao to the four seas. As soon as Qin Pingan stretched out his hand, he controlled the peachwood sword in his hand, and began to write the 36 characters on the ground to help her break the sentence, and at the same time explain to her in detail why it was so. Zheng Sinong divided the first 18 characters into 3 sentences. Among them, fire ban is read separately, and the meaning is incomprehensible. The frequent occurrence of fire ban in ritual and sage works is the proof of the linked text. If we follow Zheng Sinong's solution, the duties of the official of the ancient palace are too broad, so Zheng Sinong was so scolded that he was directly denounced by the other sage as no resignation, just no words for scholars. It is a very heavy criticism. As for the last 18 characters, there have been disputes within the Confucian temple for hundreds of years, but according to Wen Sheng's view, the word Xing Su Fuzi explain ji and, which should be correct, come, and also, the sun is quite seen, it describes the sun's deflection, and the end is the same as the solution of to, and it goes straight. Therefore, a more reasonable sentence is the east is in the sea, the west is in the quicksand, the south is south, and the sound teaching ends in the four seas. Therefore the extended meaning is wherever the sun shines, its voice teaching is practiced. That's why Jianghu's Daoyin technique, one of the top of the head cave house, cut open the gate of heaven to lead the way of sunlight as the way of fire and sun refining. It seems to be pursuing the majestic weather of the sun hanging in the sky, and then passing through a straight line in order to guide the sun. Jianghu directly illuminates the sky at noon every day, and the exterior and interior are connected with the interior. In fact, the cave is wrong and the path of sunlight is also wrong. In this way, practice qi step by step. The right way, the reason is very simple. Just think about the house in the world. Unless it is the courtyard where the four waters return to the church, there is no mansion with a wide open roof. How to keep out the wind and rain? Shui Rui sometimes frowned, sometimes suddenly. The fake Taoist priests who spoke such opinions, whether it was Wu Di or Qin Jianxian, were just one of Qin Ping's avatars. Previously, Qin Pingan used the talisman method to distract himself by attaching himself to a talisman puppet, like a star falling all over Aquarius. For example, the fake Taoist priest in the capital of Yuxuan Kingdom, in addition to setting up stalls, will also study the Taoist rituals secretly taught by the great heavenly master outside Longhu Mountain, and because of the relationship between this copybook, he left with fate and started to expound in-depth research. In Yuzhou there was a Qin Pingan, who, as a lay Buddhist of Xiang Buddha, went to a Luzong temple to study and maintain the precepts. The key to the Buddhist principles and purposes of the Vinaya school lies in the word precept, and the precepts are grouped into 2 categories, abstinence, and action and maintenance. Upholding is the practice of all good things, and it is to cultivate all good doors. That's why Qin Pingan here only wrote that Buddhist phrase before. In the realm of Qingxing Kingdom, there is a qi practitioner from a foreign country who reads military books every day in the Xinjiang. Near Xingyang Mountain, there is a place called Kaiushan Bamboo Branch School, where he serves as an outsider, and uses the method of arithmetic to study the roots of farmers and businesses. Shui Rui looked at the 36 characters on the ground, raised her head and asked, "Who are you?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Who is not a Taoist on the mountain in the world?" Shui Rui lowered her head again, and looked at the 36 words that were rephrased. The more she thought about it, the more profound she felt. No surprises, this sentence is the correct answer. When Shui Rui raised her head, the middle-aged Taoist priest had already walked away with the peachwood sword, and she asked, "Let's set up a stall?" Qin Pingan turned his head and said with a smile, "Pindao is best at observing words and expressions, so he will take the initiative to pack up and get out of the way." Shui Rui shook her head. "You are not renting a house with me, whether you live in it or not, I won't count it." The middle-aged Taoist snorted and suddenly realized, yes, they are all residents, one new and one old. Shui Rui hesitated for a moment. Can Taoist Qin teach the most appropriate method of opening a house and refining fire? The Taoist priest shook his head. Jianghu only read the book of sages, and the poor Taoist is vulgar, but he can't teach him the superior magic of the fairy family. Shui Rui was a little anxious. "Why do you still hold grudges?" The Taoist priest smiled and said, "The money is clearly a man, and the love and hatred are clearly distinguished. He is really a hero. He has no temper or character. How can he be a Taoist priest?" Shui Rui stretched out her hand. "I bought all the talismans that the Taoist priest and I sold before." The Taoist sighed, raised his sleeves quickly and walked towards her quickly. "Pindao has long thought that Mr. Zhang's roots are very strange, and with this talisman, it is like a divine help. This year's cold spring is especially obvious. At the end of February, there was also a heavy snowfall. In Jingyang Mansion of Qingling Kingdom, there has been the custom of drinking early wine since ancient times. After the snow melted, even if they were frozen into quails, not only men but also women called friends to each other, and the aroma of meat and wine still wafted in the market. There is a sect of xianxia with a long history in Jingyang Mansion, the Zhuji sect of Yushan Mountain. A middle-aged man wearing a cotton robe and a pair of suede boots was walking along a creek where the ice surface had just thawed, and the water was gurgling. He was hurriedly stepping on the muddy road. The old man with a face hurried forward in 3 steps. The old man said sternly, "Old, what is going on with you? The main lord is here and you haven't seen anyone yet. It's a big deal to ask me to come here to pick you up. Do you think it's young Master Xiahou who invites you to drink?" The man said aggrieved, "Uncle Bai, I'm going out a quarter of an hour earlier." The old man who was called Uncle Bai said angrily, "You have an appointment to drink breakfast at the middle of the hour, so young Master Xiahou has to be there on time. How can it be enough to arrive at the appointment a quarter of an hour earlier? Understand how to be a know-it-all." The man bowed his head and sighed and warmed his hands with a breath. "You know guests from outside and you know from outside. Uncle Bai, calm down, come back and invite you to drink a pot of turpentine wine." The old man glared and said, "This is not an example." The man nodded vigorously, "Guarantee I won't do it next time." The old man hesitated for a moment and said in his heart, "What kind of temper does young Master Xiahou have? Even if you haven't experienced it yourself, you should have heard a little bit about it. It's neither serious nor serious. You screwed up this wine bureau and good things have turned into bad things. Don't you have to turn around and blame me then?" The man rubbed his hands and smiled and said, "If it's really because of such a trivial matter, I will be hated by young Master Xiahou. No one will complain about Uncle Bai and my conscience has not been eaten by dogs." The old man glanced at the scraps on the man's shoulder. Obviously, the boy went down to the pit to find veins and quarry stones. The old man remained calm but his eyes were a little soft, but he snorted coldly, "You are a barefooted person who is not afraid of wearing shoes. If you know guests from outside the door, you don't have to be afraid of eating Xiahu's son's hanging. It's a big deal, slap the buttocks and leave. Don't you have a place for you to stay here? If I'm implicated by you, how can I go? I can carry a hole as the director Yushan running away. Don't let me run into you, kid, or I will scold you every time I see you." The so-called cold-hearted and warm-hearted, but that's it. There are always some old people who like to deliberately say things that are unpleasant but reasonable, as if they are afraid that others will read him well. The man seemed to be a jerk and rubbed the old man's shoulders with a hippie smile. "Uncle Bai is an old fairy, isn't Yushan still walking as fast as usual?" The old man shook his shoulders, shook off the hands of the man in the cotton robe and taught a lesson. "Anyway, you are an acquaintance, save money, buy a decent robe, look at you poor and sour." The man smiled and said, "It's not a thing to wear a robe. Besides, the real rich people on the mountain all look like me. Wearing a robe, it's not very atmospheric. How much money do you have? Dare to talk about real rich people, have you seen them? Uncle Bai, when I'm rich, I will wear 7 or 8 robes on my body and show off. Do you wear robes or sell robes? It's okay to sell both while wearing it. Uncle Bai, isn't my business doing well?" Uncle Bai said, "Old, the rebuilding of the sect cannot be rushed. There is a long way to go. You still have to read the xianxia newspaper and find the elders and brothers of the sect first. Like a genealogy, you don't have the same name. Whether it's restoring the country or establishing a new imperial court, how would you be willing to hand over the ruins of a huge immortal mansion to a 4-level chi practitioner like you? Even if that new Jun Dadu, if you are willing to return the original site, will you be able to keep the family business? Because the entire south of Beipingzu was occupied by the wild monster clan, countless mountain gates and monks moved north one after another, and entered the northern area after crossing Dadu. Nowadays, there are still many southern immortal mansions and mountain sects in the newspapers of various landscape houses in Beipingzu. The old department or recruiting troops, trying to replenish the manpower and restore the old glory, otherwise the Ancestors' Hall has been relocated and it is too far away from the original place of the sect. It is necessary to report to those who have been separated for many years. Which country where? Qinjiu nodded and said, "It's really not good. If I really want to find the elders of the division, I will go to the head of Gua, ask her to help me rebuild the mountain gate, and then sign a paper mountain alliance with the head of Gua. In this way the Zhuji faction has down the mountain." Bai Bo laughed angrily, "It's fantastic. The earliest patriarchal hall of the Zhuji school was established on the top of Tsayu Mountain. Today there is still a patriarchal hall ruins, but it was relocated to another place in the hands of the second-generation mountain master. Always feel that the omen is not good. Just because of the cornucopia of Jade Mountain, there is a quarry called Yeshi. The jade produced here can be used to peck ink stones or be used to carve into various precious jades and jade mountains. Reiki veins are similar to Chalcedony waterway, although the content is not high, but it is extremely rare on the mountain, especially those large jade placed in the courtyard, used as a feng shui stone, almost the ones from Qingling Kingdom. Standard for aristocratic families. However, the bamboo branch sect never dared to hide such boulders that could not be found. They would pay tribute to Xinjiang Mountain, and then resell them to dignitaries at a high price from a certain peak. The founder of the Bamboo Branch School, who is good at geography and has a unique eye, signed a contract with the imperial court in the early years, and used a very low price to purchase the entire Dao Jade Mountain and the surrounding veins. When the monks of the Zhuji school dig deeper, it is like sitting on a treasure mountain. After realizing it, Xinjiang Mountain has never thought that there is such a valuable jade vein hidden under his nose. It is just Zhuji. The faction had already signed a land deed with the court at that time, and it was too late to regret it, but Xinjiang Mountain did not make such a ruthless act of slaughtering it. Covenant, the latter actually became the vassal sect of Xinjiang Mountain. The current head, Guo Huifeng, is a female cultivator of golden elixir. Only because of the opening of the Bamboo Branch School the ancestor of Shan was a contract with the previous dynasty, so when the founding emperor of Qingling Kingdom sat on the dragon chair 200 years ago, the Zhuji faction and the Jade Mountain encountered a crisis that was about to come. It is said that she is sitting in a large formation on the Mount Jade Mountain, and it is clear that if the sword immortal of Xinjiang Mountain dares to occupy the ancestral property of the Mount Jade Mountain, she will come to burn all the jade stones, Xinjiang Mountain, Qingling Kingdom and Zhuji sect. Or vein. The resolute character of this head female cultivator is evident. Qin Pingan smiled, finally seeing the prodigy brother who worked hard and made a lot of money in Shilongfeng. When he was a mountain master, when he was in Luopao Mountain, he seldom took the initiative to talk about other mountains, let alone a certain monk. But this man is definitely an exception. Not to mention millet grains, even Wanshu and Shiro, the shopkeeper of Qilong Lane, have heard of this. This prodigy brother must never have imagined that he has such a high prestige in Luopao Mountain. According to the old cook at the wine table, if you don't talk about Brother Xiahu's feet, drinking is tasteless. This well-known wizard brother, named Xiahou Zan as the proud disciple of the ancestor Yan of Shilongfeng, has been in charge of the espionage affairs of Xinjiang Mountain, and has collected intelligence for 20 years. One of the most important intelligence lines is to stare at Qin Pingan and Lu Xianyang in Huaihuang County, Old Longzhou. For this reason, Brother Xiahu's few capable subordinates can be called confidants, and they also cooperate with embroidery. Yuye Chong Danjiang Shuifu, whether deep or shallow, has climbed up the relationship, and has smashed a lot of immortal money into the latter's pockets to many Shuifu subordinates who claim to have hands and eyes, ears and eyes. But this Xiahou brother from beginning to end has never used the means of inferiority. Of course he really did not dare to act rashly. After all, the backing of the mountain is Beiwepiun Mountain. The owner of the mountain has always been the accountant supported by Shanjun Weibo. He is responsible for taking a lot of the gray income of the Shanjun mansion through a new jiadu shared by the two mountains, laundering it into clean immortal money, and secretly flowing into the Shanjun mansion treasury every year. As for that Lu Xianying, he left his hometown early and went to study for many years with the Confucian Qin clan in Bojuozu. As a result, when he returned home, he was lucky and changed his body. He became the direct disciple of Ruanqiong Longquan sword sect, and Ruanqiong was the Dali dynasty, the chief offering. The backers on both sides were either Beiwa Shanjun or Chief Delirwan, so Brother Xiahou would dare to mess around. By the time the famous Zongmen celebration was over, Brother Xiahou would have completed his merits and virtues. Qinjiu suddenly said, "Uncle Bai, I beg you, if that Xiahou Jianxian asks, can you say that I paid the fat man for the swollen face for this drink?" Uncle Bai said, 3 pots of turpentine wine. The nun looked at about 30 years old, with a slender body and a mole on the corner of her mouth. The robe she wore today was obviously carefully selected. The thin parts were thinner and the fat parts were chubby. Liang Yuping saw the Bai who held the real power of mining, and complained softly, "Bai Bo, how can I make young Master Xiahou wait for a long time? When you come, young Master Xiahou will tell me not to worry." The female nun's voice was not too loud, not too small. Uncle Bai from the cave house in the corridor could hear it very clearly, and Xiahou Jianxian from the dragon gate in the room must have heard it more clearly. Uncle Bai smiled softly, "That's why Yuping is in charge of hospitality." The nun returned with anger and joy. After entering the room, Uncle Bai bowed his hands in apology, and young Master Xiahou put down the bamboo hat in his hand, stood up, and said with a smile that he didn't have to be so outspoken. Uncle Bai asked, "Xiahou Jianxian, I'll let someone serve you?" Xiahou Zhan nodded and smiled. "Naturally it's up to the guest to follow the master. Anyway, I have nothing to do now, so what if I wait for a while, not to mention that fellow Taoist banana leaf brews good tea. The Mingqian tea I ordered is still delicious." Uncle Bai looked at the relieved acquaintance from the corner of his eyes. What a fool. The implication of this, I started to ask the teacher for guilt, but I couldn't hear it? Bai Bo repeatedly clasped his fists to beg for mercy. "I'm not old-fashioned, I'll drink 3 glasses of fine wine later. The elders are respected. Uncle Bai will treat me like an outsider if he talks like that again." "Don't dare." The female cultivator began to smooth things out. "Master Xiahou, today there is a main dish, drunk shrimp, but our restaurant has spent a lot of effort to buy 18 silver and we made up a plate. Adeli, superintendent of transportation, has a passion for incense, so I finally bought it." It's like she bought it out of her own pocket. Uncle Bai didn't care that she was robbed of the credit. Xiahou Zhan said with a smile, "Yingzi, also known as Helong, I used to be in the light of Master Long, and I have eaten it several times." The female nun suddenly looked extremely embarrassed. "Bai and I is also a big head, but you Liang Yuping think it is rare. You said that you are showing off something with a Shilongfeng sword immortal. Shilongfeng not only cultivates kendo, the direct disciples often also practice water law, and the water in one continent clearly offers game, certainly not lack of knowledge. It turns out that there is an underground river in Bay of Pingzu, which is known as the Dragon Road. It is always a ferry from Xianxia. There is a unique kind of strange river shrimp in the water. In the north of the river, such as Shushui Kingdom, it is called River Dragon, and in the south, it is nicknamed Silver. A river dragon with a length of 1 finger is a first-class rare and precious river. If a river dragon has lived for 100 years, its body shape is long to 2 fingers. Nowadays, a river dragon with a finger length can be sold for a snow money, and there is no market for it. If you don't have any friendship with the Dali governor's transport office or the whole family of the old Longqing, you can't buy it at all. Xiahou Zhan asked casually, "Which transport officer is that?" Uncle Bai said, "It's an officer surnamed Huang." "How many officials?" "It seems to be from the 5th grade. Xiahou Zhan nodded. "That's one of the assistants under the command of Governor Yu Yun. In the past, this kind of mountain delicacies were all made by a senior brother who was in charge of money in Shilongfeng, who ordered it directly with the governor of the Dali Chaoyin office, but the surnamed Yu was a big one. It is said that he went to Ziguaguan with a Dali. The children of the clan are very friendly, so they got such a fat shortage." Qin Pingan smiled. "Speaking of which, Yu Shanfang, the transport supervisor in charge of this Longdao route, is now at the Dali superintendent's office. Because of Guan Yiran's relationship, the 2 parties are still old acquaintances and old wine friends. The wine is even worse. Say he is fake drunk, he gets under the table when he drinks too much, and if he is really drunk he touches the boots of the female cultivator Chi-Chi when he gets under the table. Back then, the Dali court set up a new yamen to supervise and take charge of the ferry route of Izhou, Xinjia ferry, and the transportation of goods on the mountain. The family got 3 chairs. Originally, Xuanhuan wanted to sit on the lowest chair relative to the official position. He also persuaded Yu Shanfang to go with him to the newly opened xianxia office. The new friends joined forces, the latter made money cleanly, and the former was promoted smoothly. As a result, Yu Shanfang was reluctant to take office, and as a result, Xuanhuan, who talked like a fart, turned his head and ran to become a supervisor of the Dadu. Now, as one of the transport supervisors, Yu Shanfang's most important responsibility is the long north-south long road of Aquarius Island. As for the whole family of the old Dragon City who had been involved in the Dragon Road business earlier, they once occupied half of the route. After the intervention of the Dali court, the whole family could only obediently retreat behind the scenes and eat some leftovers. The current Yamen of the General Administration of Supervision and Transportation of Dali is located on the bank of Jidu, not in Luojing, the capital of Dali, and is a close neighbor to the Haoshuafu of Changchun. The chief officer known as Chao Shuai has been promoted from the third rank to the second rank, and the two auxiliary officers have also been promoted to the third rank. As a rule, the governor of Chaoyun is not subject to the restraint of the ministry and is directly responsible to the emperor, and can be discounted. In the past 20 years, Yushanfang, which has a prosperous official business, has a good start. It was the first veteran who entered the Yamen at the beginning of its establishment. In addition, the earliest 30 mountain routes were reduced to 17 because the Dali dynasty returned to the north of Dadu, and the Song dynasty abolished some of the transportation supervisors and related assistants, mostly Gao Sheng or Ping Tiao transferred to the local area. In the prefecture and county, among the remaining transport supervisors, there is Yu Shanfang. From the fourth rank, the key is the long road under his full jurisdiction. Since the northern end is located in the Shushui kingdom in the middle of a continent, it is the only route extending to the main waterway in the southern boundary of Aquarius Island, so even the fool can see that the authority in the hands of Yu Duyun is definitely not limited to the matter of taking the Dragon Road to supervise the transport. The countries and immortals along the river will return the entire treasure at the Dali court. After the mountains and rivers in the south of Pingzhou, the Dali court still regards itself as a vassal state. It is estimated that some of the credit must be attributed to Yu Shanfang. As for the extent of the credit, it only needs to see Yu Shanfang transferred to another place in the future. The height is low, it will be clear. Xiahou seemed to finally see the out-of-door acquaintance who had been mute in the same place and smiled. "Uncle Bai, who is this?" Uncle Bai said in a deep voice, "Old. What are you still doing?" Chen Jiao immediately clasped his fists and said, "Zhuji sect's outer sect knows that the guest is old and has seen Xiahou Jianxian." Xiahou was silent for a moment, then nodded with a smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, I have long admired your name." The old movements were stiff, and he kept holding the fist-clasping gesture for a long time before saying, "It's an honor to finally meet Xiahou Jianxian." Xiahou smiled and said nothing. Liang Yuping twitched the corners of his mouth. "It's really dog meat can't get on the table." What did Bai and I think that he was willing to help this kind of rubbish? Xiahou could see it, and it was strange. A vassal sect of Xinjiang Mountain, the outer sect knows guests only, and is responsible for ushering and sending them. It does not involve the confidential matters of the Zhuji sect, and even has no access to the account books of the outer sect and Kaiyushan. Moreover, as a know-how, every expenditure needs to be recorded in detail, reported to the accountant, and it is possible to give out money. If you want to become an acquaintance of the 8 classics Shinfu sect, you must have a clean background and be well documented. As for a chi practitioner from a foreign country who has been exiled to the Zhuji sect, how could he have such a rich family background? No surprise just thinking about climbing up a relationship with the Zhuji sect, such as Jindangguo Huifeng, and returning home in good clothes in the coming year. Xiahou self-confessed vision of seeing people is still very accurate. The other party's humbleness to try not to let flattery appear too blatantly comes out of his bones, and he can't pretend. Knowing that this drink was paid for by the old, Xiahou rarely took the initiative to toast. After putting down the wine glass, Xiahou asked with a smile, "Chen Jika, I heard that you are from Huanghuachuan in the south. You are not a small sect, and it is a stable third-rate immortal mansion in treasure vase. After all these years there has never been a pillar to prop up the old portal again, but I really care. Compared with the Zhuji faction, your Huanghuachuan is only large in scale, and its background is only deep and not shallow. Do you feel shabby? By the way, I heard that there are several scenic spots in Huanghuachuan. Among them, Xiantong Mountain and Panji Mountain are facing each other. They are not high. They are all plum trees. When the flowers bloom they are as white as snow. There is a Xuanhuan temple and it is said that there is a long scroll in the temple. What is it called? Liang Yuping's face changed slightly. In the previous conversation, Xiahou Zhan seemed to have never even heard of this person's name, but he knew that this person was from Huanghuachuan in the south, and he was even more familiar with the customs there. Qinjiu was stunned for a while and seemed to say cautiously, I just heard Master occasionally mention that at the foot of the Shentong Mountain in the Yuanyuan Lecture Temple, there is indeed a collection of 10,000 plum blossoms outside of Futan, but it is generally not easy to take out. For outsiders to see, the Master still has a good relationship with the abbot and I only saw it once. Afterwards, the Master and a few of us leaked, saying that this long scroll was not well kept, but unfortunately there are many black spots on it, and many of the poems and texts are unrecognizable. Qing. As for the vicinity of Panchi Mountain, the plum blossoms in the past really bloomed like a large article, but in the early years the local people in the local villages cut down a lot of plum trees because the planting of plums was so thin that the orchids could not be sold as potted plants. The so-called plum blossoms like snow is a bit unreal, and literati and pranksters like to go to other places to appreciate plums. Blooming flowers is like a large piece of article. It sounds a bit more remote than Yi by Rushue. Chinjika, you have a good conversation. Xiahou Zhan nodded, stretched out his chopsticks to pick up the drunken shrimp, and turned his head to ask, Uncle Bai, what is the monthly salary of the Bamboo Branch School's outer sect guest now? Quickly reported a number, 6 snows to spend. There will be dividends at the end of the year, but it depends on the market. The pair of chopsticks in Xiahou Zhan's hand paused for a moment, nodded and said only 3 words, which is not too small. Then nothing was said. Uncle Bai had already understood it, not too much but not too much. Gotta give the stale a raise. This wine stale really didn't please in vain. At the foot of the Yushan Mountain, the Yeshi River merges into a large river. In the wide river, the official ships of the Qingling Kingdom are chaotic. Many precious utensils carefully crafted by craftsmen on the mountain of Zizipai flowed into the home of a country's honorable generals and ministers through this river. Apricot trees are planted on both sides of the strait, and the trees are full of apricot flowers and the wind blows like snow. Wind and rain, apricot flowers and snow, the north and south waters beat the sky. At night, a nun stood under the apricot tree. I don't know why when the flowers are falling they are all frowning. Bai and I came here alone and said, Sect Master, Xiahou Zhan seems to be rambunctious, but in fact he is extremely cautious, and there is no useful sentence at all on the wine table. Guo Huifeng nodded and said, If you can't control your mouth, how can you manage the information on Xinjiang Mountain? Bai and I said softly, the 200-year lease term signed by the Qingling Kingdom's court is about to expire. This Xiahou Zhan, who is in charge of debt collection affairs with our sects at this time, can come here regularly. Wandering around the Jade Mountain, could it be the meaning of Xinjiang Mountain Patriarch Hall or Water Dragon Peak? Guo Huifeng sighed quietly, even if there is no secret advice from Sect Master Zhu or Yan Jianxian, I am afraid that Xiahou Zhan himself has the idea of making up for the fault. It was in her hands last time. Regarding the Tsayu Mountain, the Zhuji faction and King Lingguo renewed a 200-year lease contract. This time, the Zhuji faction may find it difficult to keep the ancestral family business of this Jade Mountain. Bai and I said, in the contract it is written clearly in black and white, and our Zhuji faction can give priority to renewing the contract, and even if there are other immortals who want to buy the Jade Mountain, the Zhuji faction can also bid with them and the one with the higher price wins. Guo Huifeng smiled bitterly and said, I'm afraid that the tree wants to be quiet and the wind won't stop. Bai and I didn't know the twists and turns in it. On the side of Shishizu, he deliberately said some light words. Now that the deadline is up, the Zhuji faction has no legitimate reason to occupy the Jade Mountain. If King Lingguo wants to resell it to another home such as Xinjiang Mountain, it will be difficult for the Zhuji faction to compete with the Xinjiang Mountain. Even if Xinjiang Mountain is willing to bid, the Zhuji faction dares to bid? It's no wonder that the Qingling Kingdom's court came to an imperial consecration not long ago. Those who hide their heads and hide their tails did not dare to let Xinjiang Mountain know where they were. They just found Guo Huifeng in private and said some words around the corner, basically implying that Guo Huifeng, our Emperor Your Majesty's side, is actually very willing to renew the contract with the Zhuji faction, and the price is easy to negotiate. Apparently he was worried that the Bamboo Branch Pai would not even be able to offer a price, so it was picked up by Xinjiang Mountain at a very low price. Therefore, for the Qingling Kingdom and the Bamboo Branch School, the ownership of a Jade Mountain in the next few hundred years is an extremely delicate and complicated situation. It is only said that the Emperor of Qingling Kingdom did not dare to provoke Xinjiang Mountain, nor did he want to give away a jade mountain for nothing. They wanted Zizipai and Guo Huifeng to bid as much as possible, but they didn't want to annoy Xianxia. As for Guo Huifeng, if he made up his mind not to compete for Yushan, then he would simply not make a bid. Of course, Xianxia would be happy to see it succeed, but he would have a bad relationship with the Qingling Kingdom court. Either she didn't care about the faces on both sides of Xinjiang Mountain and Qingling country, she directly asked Baianai to replace his master, who was the sect god of wealth, and bid all the way to 30 grain rain money. No matter what Xinjiang Mountain offered, it would be successful. If it doesn't work, it won't work. But once the largest source of wealth is given away, the Zhuji faction will. Is it really going to become the descent of Xinjiang Mountain step by step? Guo Huifeng would never be reconciled to this. If it wasn't for the geographical location of her sect, Guo Huifeng didn't want to have anything to do with Xinjiang Mountain at all. This was the case before she took over as the head of the sect. She had either seen or heard too much about Xinjiang with her own eyes. The unseen act of the mountain. Baianai hesitated for a few times but still summoned up his courage to suggest, "Sect Master, if you really want to keep your ancestral property and you won't be hated by Xinjiang Mountain, can we have a relationship with the mountain to the north, that Yang Yinin? Official?" In the end, the old man probably thought it was absurd, so he couldn't go on. Guo Huifeng couldn't help laughing, but she couldn't help laughing. She was obviously amused by the whimsical idea of Uncle Bai. "Uncle Bai, who do you think I am? A monk in the upper 5 realms, or Li? A native of Zidongshan cultivator? Do you think that if I go there, I can meet that person? Take 10,000 steps back and say, without closing the door, can we negotiate with that person after meeting with that person? Uncle Bai, do you think they are the ones who founded the Shantang? Because of his appearance showing old age, even Guo Huifeng, whose realm and age are far higher than this Baianai, will shout Bai Bo with humor. From this, it can be seen that the style of the Zhuji school is not so strict, and everything is only the cultivator's realm. Right. Baianai nodded, remembering what the acquaintance said at the wine table earlier. Besides, according to the widely circulated landscape travel notes in the early years, when Shanzhuchen was young, he was a lover who liked to mess around with flowers. If this is the case, if one is not careful, wouldn't the sect master throw himself into the trap? But don't beat the dog with meat buns. The content of the book of travel notes, I would rather believe it or not. Put yourself in the shoes. They are all men, people are not romantic, they are young, and there are a few confidants. Guo Huifeng was full of doubts and asked curiously, "What landscape travel notes? The content is related to that xuanhuan? Can this kind of book be printed and sold?" Baianai blushed. "It's nothing, it's just a miscellaneous book made up by someone who doesn't know who it is." In the river, on an official boat, 2 old sword immortals, who were from the same family, but differed by 1 generation, gathered here in secret. Hanging the curtain is a layer of landscape prohibition to prevent the partition wall from having ears. There are 2 peak masters of Xinjiang Mountain, Xia Yuansui of Full Moon Peak and Yanchu of Shuilong Peak. "Yanchu, haven't you spoken to Xiahozan? Ancestor Xia, my apprentice has enough intelligence and a strict mouth, but his biggest weakness is that he is not cruel enough to do things. It is not without reason that he has not been able to enter the Golden Core yet. He will definitely help with such secrets. If he's not busy, he won't let him get involved so as not to cause trouble. After all, Emperor Zhu is not stupid, it would be bad if he noticed the clues." Xia Yuansui squinted and looked at the jade mountain in the distance. "It's just a jade vein that has been mined for hundreds of years. The geographer of Qingling Kingdom's Qin Tianjian estimated the value of the reserves not long ago, and it's worth more than 100 grain rain coins. And it is time-consuming and labor-intensive. In fact, it is nothing to give it to Guo Huifeng. Anyway, we have a large share of the account every year in Xinjiang Mountain, which is regarded as the salary of hiring people to dig the mountain. The key is that this Guo Huifeng is too stubborn and does not know in general. I always want to draw a clear line with Xinjiang Mountain. I just used her to kill the chicken and show the monkeys." Soon Bamboo Emperor came to the Full Moon Peak and complained about why the uncle did not say hello in advance and went his own way. Xia Yuansui said that he was only traveling far to practice, and he would not rush to the battlefield seriously. Even if he wanted to fight the demon clan, he would make arrangements early so that he would be able to reverse the perception of Aquarius Island towards our Xinjiang Mountain. The Bamboo Emperor was silent, and when he left, he was very depressed. Nowadays, the peaks of Xinjiang Mountain, especially those young monks with strong vigor, are extremely dissatisfied with the sect master Bamboo Emperor. In particular, the agreement with Luopao Mountain to erect a monument on the boundary is regarded as a humiliation that has not been seen in Xinjiang Mountain for thousands of years. Coupled with the fact that Xinjiang Mountain tried to establish the next sect, it was no longer a matter of fact. The sudden departure of Chao Ping, the patrolling envoy, made it clear that the Dali court chose to favor Luopao Mountain. Name Xinjiang Mountain has become the laughingstock of a continent. It should have been a brand new kendo sect in Aquarius, but the young sword cultivators have no face to go down the mountain to go out to practice. Luckily, the bamboo basket was empty, and the original hope of having two sects in one mountain became a bubble, and the many benefits of having one sect became a fantasy. To put it simply, it was the bamboo emperor who changed from a mountain master to a sect master, and his personal prestige dropped to the bottom. If there is only one sword cultivator, the bamboo emperor, in Xinjiang Mountain, who is in the upper 5 realms, in fact, no matter what, it will not be able to shake the position of the suzerain of the bamboo emperor. However, Xianhuan Sui, the uncle of the bamboo emperor, coincidentally, is also a sword immortal in the Jade Pure realm. Master Xia, what did Tao Yanba say? Naturally, I have a grudge against my nephew, not to mention the fact that the mountain was closed and I was forced to retreat and think about it, and everyone felt that it was a great shame. Besides, Tao Yanba knew that if he still wanted to be with that nephew. When the surname Qin found his way back, as long as the Emperor Bamboo was the owner of the mountain for one day, it would be a fool's dream, and he had to change the dynasty. Otherwise, if the mountain was closed for 60 years, there would be no way to get any sword repair embryos. The top of the girl's mountain is a lesson from the past. Yen Chu nodded. Tao Yanbo really had a reason to jump over the wall. It has its own water dragon peak, plus the full moon peak of the ancestor of the Jade Pure realm, and Tao Yanba's Chilling Mountain, so it is not necessary to mention the other peaks. The Bamboo Emperor is in Xinjiang Mountain, except for from his family's ancestral mountain line. Bamboo Emperor is almost a veritable loner. Xiaoyun Sui said with a smile. To be honest, if I were in the position of Emperor Bamboo as the sect master, facing the aggressive and well-prepared viewing ceremony, I'm afraid I wouldn't be much better than him. Shaking her head, Xiaoyun Sui tutade, I can only blame my nephew for his bad life. I, the uncle, have no choice but to share his worries for him. When the Bamboo Emperor was in the nascent Soul realm, he met Li Tuanjing from Fenglei Garden, and not long after he entered the Jade Pure realm, he met the two young people again. Yen Chu raised his glass. Here I wish old ancestor Xia to change his seat. Xiaoyun Sui also raised his glass and smiled lightly. It's easy to say. Yen Chu suddenly slapped himself lightly. Actually, it's time to call Sect Master Xia now. Xiaoyun Sui burst out laughing and each drank it. Bamboo Branch Pai Jizu Mountain, in an unremarkable elegant mansion, an elderly female revisionist was entertaining a famous guest. She is the peak master of Jizu Mountain, Liang Yuping's master, and the current patriarch of Zhuji sect. And the guest is the Bamboo Emperor. In the Zhuji sect, after Guo Huifeng took over, it gradually divided into two veins, Xiaoyu Mountain and Jizu Mountain. It is not easy to say that the two sides are in the same situation, but there are also undercurrents. In fact, the most fundamental difference lies in the relationship between the two. Yangshan drifted further and further away, and finally broke away from the subordinate status, or simply took refuge in Zhengyangshan. The Bamboo Emperor was playing with a bamboo yellow paper knife refined on the mountain. The scholarly family at the foot of the mountain is mostly used to cut rice paper, and this one in the hands of the Emperor Bamboo can also cut gold and stone. The Bamboo Emperor put the paper cutter back into the guqin-shaped wooden box, handed it to the female nun and said with a smile, "I'll send it to you." She took the knife. After a little thought, she knew what it meant and asked her to help. Be killed with a knife. Emperor Zhu smiled. Don't think too much, gifts are just gifts, you don't have to do anything extra, otherwise it will only do bad things. Besides, after confirming that he was not joking, she asked in a heartfelt voice, "Why bother cannibalism? How does the sect master determine that he must be hiding somewhere now, time comes, and he must be minding will not end up too far?" Intuition. That person is much smarter than you, and of course much smarter stands by what she was greatly surprised. The Bamboo Emperor said indifferently, "As long as Xiaoyun Sui is dead, what kind of storms can Yen Chu and Tao Yanba, who have no hope of going to the 5 realms in this life, create a storm?" One of them was that Emperor Bamboo didn't tell the female cultivator. It was under his instigation that Qiu Lingshan Tao Yanba took the initiative to collude with the uncle. On the other hand, Eugene from Yujiao Peak was much smarter than Emperor Bamboo imagined, and dared to take the initiative to expose his uncle's treason and usurpation. By the Wild Creek, the out-of-the-way acquaintance named Qinjiu started fishing. Bai Enai said goodbye to the sect master and went back to the scattered flower beach alone. He found that the old guy knew how to take a break. He was squatting beside an apricot tree, with his arms wrapped around his sleeves, and stomping his feet gently. After drinking a pot of wine, he took the sheep with him and stared at the water. The old man paced to the stream and said with a smile, "Don't forget 2 pots of turpentine wine." Stale raised his head. "What?" Uncle Bai sat on the side and didn't care about the kid's foolishness. He looked up at Xingshu and sighed for no reason. I just entered the Zhuji school back then, and I remember the first time I followed my master to this jade mountain. Walking all the way, I felt that the river was full of apricot blossoms and it looked good, but I thought of a proverb from my hometown, and I always felt that it was not a good taste. If it was taboo, I told Master directly, but Master told me that there is a saying at the bottom of the mountain, but there is a principle on the mountain, and this principle is not only not bad but has a very good meaning. Bai Bo asked with a smile, "Do you know what this sentence means on the mountain?" The man shook his head. "Uncle Bai, how can you guess?" Uncle Bai nodded. "I told Master the same way back then." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Is there an answer later?" Uncle Bai changed completely, clasped the back of his head with both hands and said lazily, "I just read an illusion by chance. According to legend, there is a real person with white bones who is far away and independent. He once slept under a plum tree for a long time and finally realized the truth. The road to immortality." Qin Pingan looked ahead, smiled and said, "Is Director Lu just so idle?" The old man beside him was clearly possessed by Lu Qin using a secret method. Lu Qin quickly put his finger to his mouth. "Don't say anything, we can talk a little more. Dare to ask Headmaster Lu, how did you find me? Try your luck." "Don't talk about it, I believe Li Xing will come here soon. Remember to go to Gongdalin, and help to see how Lu Cha's fishing skills are now." Lu Qin said helplessly, "The reason why Pindao came to Howren secretly is that he couldn't help but want to ask so that I can confirm with you, whether there is time in the world, whether it is composed of countless fixed stills. When you go out, you can't treat people with sincerity?" "Okay, I'm afraid of you, Qin Pingan. You and I have a thorough understanding." The two of us opened the skylight and said something bright. "Did you imprison a certain fake of me?" "Yes." Sword of Coming Chapter 10-11. At noon the sun is in the sky. Qin Pingan put the bamboo pole on the ground, stood up, raised his toes, picked up the wine jug, took a sip of the wine, talk while walking. Lu Qin temporarily lived in the old man's lodging, and took a walk by the stream with Qin Pingan. In the eyes of others, it doesn't seem strange. Uncle Bai, who is the mining officer of Jade Mountain, is old and has always been friends with outsiders. Qin Pingan said, "It's just a false image created out of thin air. Why did Zhang Jiao make such a move to recruit teachers and move the crowd? He did not hesitate to violate the ritual system of the Confucian Temple and sneak into the vast world without authorization. Unless..." Lu Qin smiled and said, "Unless Pindao originally had one of his thoughts, he never took it back and it was always floating in Howren for a long time. Since Pindao didn't come from Baiyujing, it's not a violation of the rules of the Confucian Temple." Qin Pingan shook his head. "Unless Headmaster Lu wants to enter the 15th realm immediately, to fill the vacancy after Master's dispersal and before Big Headmaster returned to Baiyujing, so as to shock the 14 states of Qingming. It can be regarded as a ferry boat. Presumably Qingming is also the same, just as there is an old saying, if you don't cultivate morality, all people in the boat will be enemies. There is an answer in this heart." As a result, after deductions, Zhang Lu found that the current situation was broken, and the possibility of success was reduced without warning. He felt that something was wrong, and after thinking about it, he thought of me. "How long can the teacher stay here? A quarter of an hour? Or a stick of incense?" "Qin Pingan, you're not a hard-to-guess person. Divide your mind and take risks. You want to bring the world in your heart to the truth and use techniques to approach the truth. As a result, you are seen through by outsiders. Ordinary monks will still be indecisive. Think about it. A compromise. You are different. There are only 2 choices. One is to wait and see the change and bet on a false alarm. Then, while notifying the Confucian Temple sages sitting in the sky to close the door and helping to stare at the barrier between heaven and earth, you called Mr. Mo and Miss Xie to block the road. Qin Pingan, after so many years, it seems that you still haven't completely changed this kind of right or wrong. Thoughts and ideas." The 2 Taoist friends, who had a rather complicated relationship, reunited in a foreign country, but here they are talking in different ways. What's the difference between an idea and a train of thought? Thoughts can be boundless and boundless, but ideas are organized and organized. Qin Pingan nodded. Does this count as a difference in mind? For example, the same path gradually develops sensibility and rationality. Lu Qin smiled and said, "Heaven learns to cultivate the mind and people learn to cultivate one's body. The body is at peace and happiness, that is, the gods and people. It may be said in a general way, and the poor Taoist will give a simple example. the tablet of the gods of later generations, the patriarch's hall on the mountain, and the folk ancestral hall below the mountain. There are also imperial temples in Igua. They are generally used to worship ancestors and ancestors. The gods and gods are set to die. The names of the deceased are written among the gods. The small characters on the side are the names of the gods and ancestors. If there is a real difference in the mind, who is the master and who is the second? Qin Pingan wondered, can you make a metaphor like that? Certainly. Lu Qin said, no. Qin Pingan turned his head. If it wasn't for Uncle Bei's body, he really wanted to punch him. Lu Qin said, Pindao is just to prove that you guessed wrong. There is no time limit for a quarter of an hour and a stick of incense. Pindao can stay as long as he wants in Howren World, and the Confucian Temple can't control Pindao. Qin Pingan suddenly said, actually, I was wrong at the beginning. Human sensibility and rationality do not actually diverge from two paths, but go together in the same vein. There is sensibility before rationality. No, it is rationality before sensibility. The difference between heaven and human desires? Just like what you call the gods who are enshrined and the worshippers. Trace the origin. You can go back to the ancestors of a surname and then go up. The body is in the person and the heart is in the heart. Scott. The little chicken Lu Qin pecking at the rice nodded vigorously. Oh, to be able to explain it like this, isn't it because the poor road gave a blind cat to see a dead mouse? It's wonderful. Lu Qin first raised his head to look at the sun, then looked around and shook his sleeves. It really is a big word, and the words of the Tao are like a raging fire. Qin Pingan sighed, Master Lu is amazing. I found my second clone so quickly. Lu Qin smiled and said, anyway, if you have nothing to do, it's better to guess the riddle and solve the problem. With a snort, Lu Qin turned his body and walked sideways looking at Qin Pingan's profile. This place knows that the guests are old, the Taoist priest Wu Di of Xuanhuan, plus the avatar of the mangosteen. This is already 3 minds and then again. In addition, the god master of the village school at the foot of the mountain in Yunzhou who opened the hall and studied, must not move around very much, not moving like a mountain, that is, it is like the North Pole in the sky pulling in a straight line from afar. Could it be that the rest of the clones are divided into 7 roads? Well, Pindao finally figured it out. It turned out to be a Big Dipper array of the heaven and earth. Now Qin Pingan has found a very broad kendo by virtue of the superposition of the 2 flying swords' life and magical powers, that is, through seeing, hearing, hearsay and imagining many methods, one after another small 1,000 worlds are assembled. If it is said that before returning to Howren World from the Great Wall of Sword Chi, it was just a slightly immature idea, then when Qin Pingan began to refine a long river of time through gold and copper coins, especially this trip to the outside world has improved a moon in the well, the rank of the flying sword, Qin Pingan's avatars, the 7 Qin Pingan, everything that he saw, heard, thought in the different worlds of Aquarius Island is a kind of real world all the time. As the refining sword, that sharpens the sword in the dragon-slaying platform. This way of practicing swordsmanship makes Lu Qin feel a lot more eye-opening. For example, what I saw in the wine bureau today by N.I. Xiaozhan and Liang Yuping, the 3 people's body, appearance, eyebrows, voice, tone, attitude, look have been recorded by Zhika, and they have been quietly integrated into the main body Qin Pingan's swordsmanship world. In short, all the characters and landscapes are a word on the road that Qin Pingan walks on, so the banquet at the Sanhua Beach in Sayu Mountain seems to form a sentence. The more words that make up this sentence, the more complex and the more detailed the content, the closer it is to the truth, that is opposed to the fake. As Lu Qin asked before, is there time in the world? Is a one composed of an infinite number of stationary stills? When Lu Qin said this, he regarded the whole world as a book that was completely static. When Lu Qin identified the one, he started to turn the book, and the characters and scenes in the book would flow consciously and passively. And this statement by Lu Qin is obviously of the same origin and different from that of Li Shixing. Suddenly forgetting a certain word and suddenly remembering a certain thing, it seems that I have experienced. Life is alive, how sad. The grief of unfounded worry and the cry of the end of the road made Lu Qin feel sad. It's like Qin Pingan was out of the sky before, and on the way back to Howren with Xiaoma and Bai Jing Yufeng, Bai Jing threw him a stack of paper with pictures of ancient landscapes. At that time, Qin Pingan felt like a little book, more like Pei Chen in class drawing a certain little person on the corner of the page in different poses and quickly turning the page is a complete set of actions. Therefore, when Qin Pingan, the writer of the book, picks out this sentence separately and puts it into the long river of time in the cage, others will see it in the future and they will feel more real. This couple is actually going to join the ranks of the city god and obtain the amulet of the official ultimatum of the underworld, which is a fork in the road with the gods of mountains and rivers. Oh, more than an amulet, it is the most veritable life-saving amulet in the world. It's strange how to do it with the mean behavior of Ma Kexuan's parents, even if they want to rely on various acts of kindness, accumulating yin and virtue ranks in this list, but Fengdu Hades has had the iron rule of doing good at heart is not rewarded since ancient times. People in the world, even if they are proficient in the yin laws of the underworld, want to accumulate merits and exploit loopholes, then this threshold alone, they are destined to be unable to cross, and it is pure wishful thinking to want to be the high-ranking city god. Qin Pingan finally said, Ma Kexuan is very smart, he has long deliberately bypassed the two of them, secretly arranged manpower in the capital of Yuxuan Kingdom, and only forced his parents to do certain things, but deliberately did not explain the reason. He did not even allow them to ask why, and he used extremely harsh words to warn or even intimidate his parents. It is better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. Ma Kexuan does the opposite. It may be a bit slower, but it is effective. Lu Qin smiled and said, when did Ma Kexuan start this plan? Qin Pingan said, it's not too late and it's definitely not too early. Back then, the Ma family and Xing moved out of the town together with the group of relatives, directly out of the Dali dynasty at that time, and went to the Yuxuan country in the border of Xia. At that time, Ma Kexuan was arrogant. He didn't think I was qualified to be his enemy. The reason why he let his parents move out of his hometown was probably because he was worried about their fate. He was more like Kai Jinjian and Funanhua. To practice in Jianghu Mountain, it is impossible to stare at Lizhu Cave all the time. When I left the Sword Qi Great Wall for the first time and returned to Aquarius Island, especially when I walked out of Shujian Lake, Ma Kexuan might have become wary, but a larger proportion is that he deliberately disgusted me and made me want to take revenge. But I was unable to take revenge for a long time, and I even felt hopeless for revenge for the rest of my life, and wanted me to live in hatred and guilt for the rest of my life. When I served as the hidden officer of the Great Wall of Sword Qi and the news came back to Howran World, Ma Kexuan began to really regard me as in order to threaten. I carefully studied what was done in front of and behind the scenes of the Ma stage in Yuxuan Kingdom. It was in those few years that the younger brothers of various houses began to make frequent shots, and even began to try to pass the imperial examinations of their descendants, get official orders, shine on the lintel, and later on. Lu Qin was speechless. Pindao is just joking with you, you don't need to be so rigid. Lu Qin changed a more pleasing topic. Qin Pingan, you are really acting like a guest. Previously, Lu Qin had suggested that Qin Pingan should be an acquaintance who was sent to us when he had the opportunity, which would be very interesting. Qin Pingan smiled and said, being kind is like a flow. Lu Xinshin sighed, what you see with your eyes is the world, how precious and how fragile a person's memory is. The setting sun is about to set, and the purple and green are in all shapes and sizes, changing in an instant like a dream. No, isn't it noon? Why is it sunset? Too big, Lu Qin knew something was wrong and immediately closed his eyes and opened them again. Often walking by the river without wet shoes, miserable. You, Qin Pingan, are too reluctant to remember the old feelings. Pindao is the old Yu Lao who helps you in Ning's red line. By the river, Uncle Bai sat beside the apricot tree and asked, how many fish have you caught? The squatting Qin Pingan held a fishing rod and smiled. There is no catch for the time being, only one big fish has bit the bait, but even if he is hooked, he may not be able to walk ashore. Uncle Bai smiled and said, you're a chi trainer anyway, but you still can't catch a fish? Qin Pingan raised his face and nodded and said, the fish has become fine. Uncle Bai laughed dumbly and the stinky boy is quite good at telling jokes. In a bizarre and mysterious realm, Lu Qin and a Lu Qin looked at each other, like looking in a mirror, so there were countless Lu Qins in the eyes of both sides. It's not a day or two to see him unpleasant, whether it's bearable or unbearable. The mountain master in front of him, although it is not the real body of the master, why not? The last time I watched the opening ceremony of the Huangliang sect, in Lushan, the mountain owner was not around, and I didn't deal with this man named Lu very well. I lost a little face on the ground and I have to find a place today. Lu Qin turned his head and saw Qin Pingan in a green shirt who came down the mountain, with some ink stains on his hands. The Lord of God was in the school at the foot of the mountain near the source of the Shimei River, and Qin Pingan was also one of the clones in front of him. He was responsible for copying books, and recording and summarizing what the other 6 people saw and heard. Lu Qin's eyes complained, Qin Pingan, Pindao is visiting today and he has no gifts and no gifts. Why are you still angry? It turned out that Lu Qin and his mind had completely lost the traction of the avenue on the side of the Sanhua Beach in the Jade Mountain. To say that he was inattentive and said was done by Gao Gu of Huayang Palace in Defei Mountain, that's all, but Qin Pingan is still only in the nascent soul realm. When Qin Pingan is in the ascension realm, is it still worth it? Qin Lingjun glared and said, "How arrogant, so bold, how dare you call my mountain master by his name?" As long as the good mountain master stayed by his side, Qin Lingjun would be almost completely drunk. Fellow Taoist Jingqing, wait, there will always be a time when the two of us will meet again. Lu Qin gave the boy in Xingyi a thumbs up. When the time comes, the poor road will give you a bowl, and the fellow sees the two with tears in their eyes, and you are crying so hard, you can invite the poor road back to drink a bowl of bitter wine. Qin Lingzhen's face was embarrassed, and he reached out and grabbed Qin Pingan's sleeve. Because I remembered a mantra of Bai Xian, don't go on the road at night, don't be alone. Qin Pingan shook his sleeves and held down the head of the boy in Xingyi. It's on his own territory anyway, he said that a loser will not lose. It's different when someone supports him. Qin Lingjun put his hands on his hips and moved his mouth slightly. It seemed that he was brewing a killer trick. Lu Qin said angrily, "Don't blame me if you dare to spit." Having said that, Lu Qin took a sip of tea from the bowl, raised his head and finished drinking. Lu Qin shook his head, his Adam's apple moved slightly, "Then fight on your own merits." Qin Lingjun thought about it. Xiaomi Li hurriedly ran to Qin Pingan's side, stood on tiptoe, put his hand to his mouth and whispered information. "Good mountain master, the Taoist Lu said just now that you both went out to practice together, trekking mountains and rivers, and I don't know how many mountains and rivers you have traveled. Water has gone through all kinds of difficulties and dangers, but fortunately the brothers worked together to break the gold, and finally there were no surprises every time, and then one time in a place called Kaiyushan he paid you a treat, saved a wine bureau, and you were in front of you. A fairy named Liang Yuping with the Taoist name Jiaoshan, praised her in front of her for her good looks. Of course I don't believe it at all. Taoist Xianwei. Doubtful. The Taoist master Xianwei also asked how fat and thin the girl Yang was. Taoist Lu said that the fairy sister was so beautiful and beautiful. He used 7 or 8 idioms. After listening to it for a long time, Taoist Xianwei just said, "Su." Taoist Lu immediately changed the popular statement, saying that Miss Liang from the front and the back is excellent, but the side view is a little dull, and Taoist Xianwei let out a long sigh when he heard the words. After picking up a bowl of tea I became lethargic. After that, the two Taoist priests seemed to be in pairs, one said that they were walking in the snow, and the other said that there was a fire in the sky. The rest still have a lot of twists and turns. I don't even remember where I went. Good man, mountain lord, you walked to the gate of the mountain. Just now, Taoist Lu talked about the decline of the divine way and revered fate, and what should you revere in the decline of fate? Qin Lingjun pricked up his ears. What else? It is understandable and excusable to want to come to the mountain master to say a few scenes at the wine table. Xianwei was stunned. Millet grains, did you listen carefully? Before you sat there yawning, confused, and the chicken pecking at the rice, was it all an illusion? It's just that Pindao and Lu Daochang talked so much about serious knowledge, why can't you remember them but these few irrelevant idle days remember so firmly? Xiaomi Mili didn't forget to grin at the Taoist immortal way and extended his thumb, both to say good things and to ask for credit. Good man, mountain master, our Taoist immortal way is very considerate in hospitality, I see it all in my eyes, no leaks, talk and do things, very stable. Qin Pingan walked behind the Xianwei who had been praised, put his hands on the shoulders of his janitor and complained softly, Chen's character cannot be trusted by outsiders. After all, he is an outsider, so let him go, Xianwei said. Chang is his own family, how can he be dubious? Captain Xian called Chu and said, I was taken to the ditch. Lu Qin supported the lotus crown on his head and said with a smile, Xiaoli Taoist Xianwei, I have nothing to do with you here. Rong Pindao, Shanzhu Qin and Taoist Jingqing have a sweet memory. Qin Pingan nodded, and Xiaomi Mili got up obediently and returned to the mountain, planning to talk to Sister Nuanshu at the foot of the mountain, and met a young Taoist priest named Lu, who spoke witty and friendly. Besides, judging from the way Qin Lingjun has gotten along with the Dragon Slayer over the years, I believe that in the Yufu dynasty in Yongzhou, he would only be brothers and sisters with Qin Qinglu, and get along very well, for example drinking a little wine every other day. As for the process of walking away, roughly as Qin Pingan said, the water of the East China Sea that Master Bixiao still puts in the sword-raising gourd is an indispensable key link. Otherwise, even if Lu Qin was in charge of Bai Yujing, he would not be able to tear down the east wall to make up for the west wall. Qin Lingjun frowned, raised a finger, and said with a serious expression, Let me slow down, I can't turn my head around for a while, I have to think carefully before making a conclusion. Lu Qin rolled his eyes and said, "You can come up with a fart with a mushy brain." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Headmaster Lu's general meaning is that as long as you followed him to this Yongzhou, you will have great confidence that you will succeed in transforming into a dragon. Before the Wangzhu, he became the first real dragon in the world. The real thing needs to be like the wind and the rain, and there is no need to worry about being targeted by the dragon killer. Ascension, the real dragon, is the chief enshrined in the Yufu dynasty. Your identity is no different from the water transport co-owners of the 14 states of Qingming, and most importantly, there is the biggest amulet because you are equivalent to the protection of Baiyujing's avenues, a world, an immortal mansion on a mountain, a dynasty under the mountain, where to go all of them are guests, and I have to praise you, Patriarch Jingqing, you are a great hero." The boy in Tsing Yi blinked. The mountain master understood what he said. He was silent for a moment and finally asked a question, "Then what? In a foreign land you have achieved great success, you have become rich, and you have new friends all over the world, but even if you put aside those wine and meat friends who only call themselves brothers at the wine table, there are also several true friends who can be called true friends who share weal and woe, but here, down and out mountain, what to do?" Chen Lingjun looked up at the mountain. There were stupid girls, millet grains, old cooks, and then turned to look at Daoist Xianwei at the door. A little further away there would be a kukusu who often loses face, but in fact always Brother Wei who is good enough to wear a pair of chopsticks with Luopao Mountain. Chen Pingan and Lu Chen looked at each other. "Oh." Lu Chen smiled. "Really?" Others said, "Like this, or to be more precise, they think so. They may be regretful, knowing that this is the case, pretending to be light-hearted, at least they are swollen and fat, and they don't want to admit that they missed such an opportunity. But Chen Lingjun is really different. Just look at how Chen Lingjun has been thinking about the Yujiang water god brother over the years and helping him time and time again. You can see how much the boy in Tsing Yi, who calls himself Little White Tiao in Yujiang Waves, Little Dragon King on Luapa Mountain, values loyalty. My friend is not good to me and there are always his difficulties, but I can't be indifferent to my friend. I can't make my friends feel that I have made a friend like me for nothing, otherwise I have a problem with my life. This is probably the only purpose of Chen Lingjun's life in the arena. Just like a truth, if you tell 100 people, 98 of them make sense, but there are 2 that don't make sense. Maybe one is a staunch skeptic, and the other is not serious after knowing the truth. In the final analysis, Chen Lingjun was reluctant to bear all the people and everything in Luopao Mountain. Lu Chen rolled up his sleeves and put away the landscape painting on the table. Chen Pingan asked Chen Lingjun to go to the stove to fetch a pot and add water. This year the old cook picked the green tea from a few old tea trees on the other side of Xuanhu Mountain, and made it by himself. The tea before the rain can stand up to brewing, and it is mountain spring water, which is very sweet to drink. Chen Lingjun poured hot water into the 2 bowls on the table, but he seemed to have forgotten his own white bowl. Walking was a little buoyant, so he was not in a hurry to climb the mountain. Chen Lingjun first carried his hands and then went to Daoist Xianwei's side. He patted his shoulder and said a few sincere words before slowly climbing the mountain. Being mixed in the rivers and lakes, the righteous words are the first. The poor and the lowly cannot be moved, and the mighty cannot be surrendered. Forced by the situation, occasionally kowtow a few times, it is not ashamed, and it is also a man who can bend and stretch. Lu Chen, this melon skin, do you think I'm stupid and become a real dragon and people who kill dragons can't come and cut me? What's the brain? I'm not smart. If you're smart you can't say this kind of talk about bragging and not writing drafts, and by Yujing's 3rd headmaster I'll do it, please don't go. Seeing the millet with a golden pole on his shoulder and a green bamboo stick on his shoulder, Chen Lingjun carried it with both hands, nodded and said old-fashionedly, "A millet, it's a mountain tour." Millet didn't stop, just glanced at him. She sighed and continued to patrol the mountain. Jingqing is good or not, this is the brain, alas worry. Chen Lingjun, who originally wanted to brag a few words with Xiaoli, immediately felt that it was meaningless, not to talk about the idle days. Chen Lingjun quickly followed Xiaoli, slapped up his sleeves and patrolled the mountain together. Xing asked, "Is there still tea over there? I saw that there were quite a few days ago. It's not a problem to fill a bag. Didn't the old cook steal it? The pretty girl who used to be in the small town with you and my brother, is now married as a woman. Come on, I'll lead the way. On the other side of the city, how many beautiful girls are there now? One is old and another is new, there are only a lot more than in the past." Lu Chen let out a snort. Hearing the voice he just felt a big head. He was about to put oil on the soles of his feet, but the man reached out and grabbed his shoulders and said with more strength, "What are you running? Old friends, brothers are united, business is booming. When you with my light I have made a lot of money." Lu Chen had to put his back on the bench and said helplessly, "Brother Dafeng, the family doesn't talk about the two sides. As long as you squatted next to the stall in the poor road, it was really no business, and it was almost blocking the way to make money. Ladies, they all came to the poor road one by one, but when they saw you they all walked around the stall. Did the poor road say a word? Is it enough brotherly loyalty?" Zheng Dafeng smiled and said, "What's the point of mentioning the past?" Lu Chen nodded, tilted his shoulders and complained, "It hurts." Chen Pingan got up with a smile, "I don't think I understand what you guys are talking about and what you're talking about." Lu Chen was anxious, "Don't, the three of us are all acquaintances, we can chat together if we want to chat." Chen Pingan sat down again and asked, "Headmaster Lu has come to Howren this time, what is he busy with?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "If Chen Shan is busy with something he can go first. Brother Dafeng will treat him here, that's enough." Chen Pingan thought for a while, "Are you looking for a certain monk?" In fact, Fuyazu is looking for, Tongis Hao is looking for, and Aquarius is also looking for such a potential cultivator. According to Cui Dongshan's speculation, it is the son of a Howren human woman and a cultivator of the wild demon tribe. Cui Dongshan wanted to find this person first, but it was in vain. Just like he wanted to find the little girl Yuan Xiao later in the colorful world, he was destined to disappear. Although Chen Pingan was almost inexplicable, Lu Chen nodded and said worriedly, "It's very troublesome, quite troublesome. In a sense, I've actually found it twice, but I haven't been able to catch it. As for why I can't catch it, just look at the sundial in the wild world." So the Confucian Temple side also has a headache. This time Pindao came to help, and the Confucian Temple did not stop it. Staying on Howren's side is just a hot potato. Yuli is not suitable and he can't be imprisoned. After all, the other party has not made any mistakes at present, and it is not easy to let go. If it is allowed to develop, it will only survive and not destroy itself. The natural cultivator is born, and the preservation is to pick up money on the road. You can pick up Daoshu cheats on the last trip to the mountain. If you want to quietly let a big cultivator stare as if waiting for the other party to make a mistake and then kill them, isn't it still punishable by not teaching? With poetry, benevolence, righteousness and sages, who is willing to take over such a huge cause and effect? Even if someone is willing to take over such a mess, do they really think that they can change the trajectory and change the result? If the poor guess is not wrong, in the heart of that child there was already a huge hostility towards the entire Howren world, such as seeing with his own eyes the indisputable, or even a good man's father who was beheaded by the Howren cultivator just because he took military exploits, regardless of indiscriminate he killed him. Even the child didn't have time to know that his father was a savage demon clan, and his mother was also affected. If the woman's appearance was any better, wouldn't those Howren cultivators not be individuals? Pindo's guess is only one of the possibilities. It's just sex. In fact, there can be countless worse situations and outcomes. His deep-rooted hostility to Howren world will, as the years go by and his ascent on the road of cultivation, make him gain more malice and savagery. The demons and monks who died here in the world, those pure malice, will continue to be passed on and superimposed on this monk in a strange way that is difficult to observe and trace, until one day, for example, when he joins the ranks, the Ascension realm will only reveal the truth, but by that time he is probably already in the wild world, standing with Fei Ran and Shouchen. It is very likely that the two worlds almost collided this time. The guy's intention is only to let this child grow up quickly in a more hidden way. Li Sheng leaves Howren world once every 10 years and goes to the outer world. This person will grow up quietly if he is lucky, and the realm won't climb too fast so as not to reveal the truth. It's a good thing you didn't act impulsively, if the Sishiantai and Jilan office of the Lu family in Middle-earth were destroyed. That's all, it's just a waste of money for repairs if the Lu family is destroyed. The Yin-Yang family Sky Watchers and Earth Surveyors suffered heavy casualties due to a sword questioning, and there were only a few left. In addition, the head of the family, Lu Shen, was cut down, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Mr. Lu, now there is a pair of men and women, they belong to heaven and earth, the Taoism is pure and flawless, and the whole world is vast. Cannot be said that they are the only ones who can find the monk. There are still masters in the Confucian Temple, but there are them without them. It is true, it is still very difficult the same. If the two of them met you, Mr. Amo and Miss Xia, that night, such as what is good? Isn't that a huge mess? If they were all refined, although the rank of a jianghu flying sword could not be improved, the number of flying swords differentiated could be significant. Increase. After the trip to Yuzhou, in addition to seeing His Majesty the Emperor Dali, He did not know how much gold, fine and copper coins were left in the Dali treasury. Of course, I have to go to the Yuzhang County Logging Institute. After confirming that Lin Shuyi's father was not involved in the grievance that year, Qin Ping's kind of relief is not enough for outsiders. On the Qingming festival this year, Ma Xuanhuan wanted to stop Yuxuan in the capital so he could try it. It doesn't matter whether it will involve Zhenwu Mountain or the King's Mansion of Xia Mountain in Aquarius Continent. Then, in Youjiao Mountain, Qin Pingan promised Zhang Kaiqin and Hong Yanghua that he would attend the King Xingguo viewing ceremony in the middle of the year. As for the excavation of Dadu on Tongyi's Hao, Qin Pingan has made up his mind not to ask questions, and leave it all to Cui Dongshan and Qingping Sword Sect to run in with all the forces. Previously in the outer world, Qin Pingan confirmed one thing. The Confucian Temple is indeed going to be conferred the title of the 5 sacred mountains of Aquarius Island, and the 5 mountain monarchs including Wei Bo and Jin Qin, are about to be conferred the title of gods. As for the 3 religions debate, Qin Pingan was still hesitating, whether to participate in the audition and if so, whether to bring Xianwei. The top priority, of course, is to return to the Jade Pure Realm. Afterwards he traveled with Lu Jiuxian to the vast world. Originally, the Lu family in Peiaxiang's Leigong Temple in Aizhou must visit. Now Qin Pingan is too lazy to go to the Lu family, and the relationship is not familiar to that. Just an anonymous guest. At the door, as soon as the mountain owner left, Xiao Mo and Xie Go soon appeared. Lu Qin looked at the sable-capped girl. The sable-capped girl bent her 2 fingers, pointed to her eyes, and gestured to the young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown to take care of that pair of thieves. Lu Qin said in his heart, everything is natural to rise and fall, and the old things are not as good as the new. It's just that Miss Xie wants to steal the sky and change the day, and it's not easy to get along with this in the eyes of the poor. Xie Go grinned and said, it's up to people. Then Xie Go said pitifully, little Mo, this Taoist priest is secretly teasing me, and he just said what he said in his heart, and it's very meaty. Zheng Dafeng immediately raised the white bowl. I can take Dao Chang Lu's dog's head as a guarantee, it's something Taoist Lu can do. Xiao Mo smiled, obviously not taking it seriously. Mr. Zheng, don't be joking, I trust Taoist Lu. Lu Qin gave Mr. Xiao Mo a thumbs up and drank a sip of tea to suppress his shock. Besides, it's better to chant Buddha with a dirty mouth than to scold someone. Xie Go sneered and said, you are a Taoist priest and you still eat fast and recite Buddha? Lu Qin nodded. When the poor road encounters difficulties and the hurdles that cannot be overcome, he must always recite the blessing of the Buddha several times in his heart, Amitabha. Xie Go was a little puzzled. The Taoist priest in front of him was the 3rd headmaster of Baiyujing, Lu Qin? Is it hard to kill? How hard is it to kill? However, Lu Qin turned his head to look at Luopao Mountain. There was a rickety old man on the mountain who was described by Pei Qian as the best cook among the cooks, and the best cook among the warriors, looking at the foot of the mountain with a smile. I don't know how far you are after you don't, and when you are drunk you forget the way you came. The world was silent, except for the faint sound of flipping books on the bamboo chair at the gate of the mountain. In the bamboo house on the 1st floor, Qin Pingan continued to copy books. Dozens of people, such as Xiahou Zan and Liang Yuping, were already standing by the Heart Lake where Lord Qin Pingan was. Their postures and expressions changed slowly, like water flowing. The great cultivator looked at it intently, even if the damage of each thread of the robe fits the reason. Since it is all real things that have been washed repeatedly by the long river of time, naturally there is no flaw at all. And every word they said, the words floated in the air, like a flock of birds lingering around the mountains, lingering. Luopao Mountain and Qingping Sword Sect. The upper sect has the lotus flower-blessed land of Jiling Peak, and the lower sect has Changchundongtian with Mixufeng. There is a mountain in the cave called Qisong, naturally because there are many ancient pines in the mountain. According to Cui Dongshan's explanation, it was because the previous owner was pure-hearted and had few desires and didn't like making noises, so he used a very clever method of closing the mountain, so that the mountain has not yet appeared in the mountains. Of course, this ban has been lifted by Cui Dongshan. I believe that it will not be long before the ancient pinewood spirits with enlightenment will appear one after another in the mountains. Yu Shehui and He Gu, who originally practiced swordsmanship in this mountain, are now traveling and busy with business, saying that they can do their best to excavate Dadu. Only Chai Wu, Bai Xian, King Sun Chun and Qing Chaolu were left. Chai Wu has entered the Jade Realm, and is now the most idle one. It is rare for Bai Xian and the others to gather together today during their sword practice gaps. Chai Wu was aware of the party here, so he rushed over to join in the fun. Seeing the little girl with the jug in her hand, Bai Xian clasped his fists and bowed. Hey, isn't this a there immortal? What kind of wind is blowing your old man? Come here, Peng Bai Shenghui. The younger generation has a low realm and a poor family, no wine in a humble house, poor hospitality and sins. Chef Cheng, what are you doing over there? Hurry up and give us a few kowtows to that immortal chief to make amends. King Sun Chun, who was sitting on the side, glanced at Bai Xian, who was full of sour words. It was like this every time, endlessly. Thanks to Chai Wu's good temper, she was really not used to Bai Xian. In fact, Bai Xian is just unhappy in his heart and has been addicted to his mouth. To say that he is really jealous of Chai Wu, who is Uncle Bai, who is dedicated to proving the way and ascending. It's just that since Chai Wu entered the Jade Pure realm, Bai Xian felt that he was completely unable to be a relative with the word genius in his life. After all, with Chun Li, who is known as the little hidden official, Bai Xian didn't feel that the gap between the two sides was too big. As a result, Chai Wu directly jumped from the 3 realms of Qi practitioners in Lujinjing and arrived at Yupujing. What should Uncle Bai do? Could it be that he was so cruel, let Lord Yingguan cut himself a few swords and cut back from the Dongfu realm to the 3rd realm first? The problem is that even so, his Uncle Bai is just following the of the girls. Xiaomu, isn't he still the first to lose to her in terms of momentum? Really bored, Bai Xian took out a booklet from his sleeve, put it on the table, solemnly rubbed his hands and then slowly opened the hero book. On the first page there is Qiu Ji, the Jiaifeng swordsman who I just met not long ago, my good brother. It's no wonder that Lord Yingguan always likes to travel far away, to walk around the rivers and lakes, and all his friends come like this. They can't fall from the sky, so they have to rely on fate to find them and make friends. Bai Xian turned his head and said, "Little cook, you also learn boxing." Cheng Chaolu immediately shook his head like a rattle and said decisively, "I'll forget it, the aptitude for learning boxing is too poor, and it's not enough to watch, so I won't give it up." For the sake of fellow villagers, Bai Xian continued to persuade, "Little cook, why do you have to be so arrogant as a person? It's good to shout a few times by the side." Seeing the fat man, Bai Xian still shook his head. "That's all, anyway it's not less than a Ching Chaolu, who is the same as that Lian Ranfeng Bai Shou who has no courage and is a coward. Especially Bai Shou, thanks to the fact that they are all surnamed Bai, and the children of the Bai family are all heroes. Next time we meet, I have to persuade him to change the surname." The southern part of Aquarius, the northeastern border of the Yunxiao dynasty, a young man with thick eyebrows and big eyes, followed by a young female crown holding a whisk, they stopped at the foot of a mountain. The female crown smiled and said, "Shuijing, your friend, why did you choose such a place where spiritual energy is thin to start a school?" Dong Shuijing said, "He had such a personality when he was a child. He didn't like to be lively. He wished that no one knew him. He just liked to make money in silence." The masters of this mountain, one in charge and one in law, went down the mountain together to welcome the distinguished guests. On the way down the mountain, Wu Tijing jokingly said, "Nothing goes without going to the 3 treasures hall, Master Hu, you have to take it easy, be careful to be deceived and return the money to the number of people." Hu Feng said, "When it comes to money, Dong Shuijing is similar to you. He is not greedy and can be trusted." Hu Feng had only 1.5 friends in his life. Wu Tijing beside him counted as 1, and Dong Shuijing, a fellow villager at the foot of the mountain, counted as half. Wu Tijing raised his chin. "The Taoist nun beside Dong Shuijing looks good." Hu Feng said, "No surprise, it is the current palace master of Lingfei Palace." Sure enough, after the two sides met, Dong Shuijing introduced the female crown of the companion, Huang Li, the current palace owner of Lingfei Palace, with the Taoist name Dong Ting. It used to be the Lingfei view of the old Baishuang dynasty, but the capital was smashed by the Dili cavalry all the way south, and the kingdom was cut off, and now it has become the Yunxiao dynasty with a slightly smaller territory. Not long ago, the Lingfei temple was also elevated to the palace from the Guan, but it was not within the territory of the Yunxiao dynasty. Or it is precisely because of the existence of this Taoist temple and her role as the protector of the country, otherwise the Yunxiao dynasty could completely annex this small country. It is rumored that this Jade Pure Realm female crown is very good at Xinjiang. Congratulations, repairs Liujia on the road, can invite gods to the truth, use all ghosts and driving soldiers. She opened up an ancient battlefield with a large number of Yin soldiers on the border between the two countries outside the palace. As her second dojo, it is now very powerful and the Yunxiao dynasty is a headache for this. Dong Shuijing's first business partner was actually Hu Feng. On the boundary between the old Longzhou and the new Chuzhou, Dong Shuijing was nicknamed Dong Banqing. Hu Feng was able to make a fortune thanks to a lot of credit. When they met, Dong Shuijing didn't give any polite greetings and went straight to the topic. Hu Feng, do you still remember the amount of the principal you gave me and our agreement on splitting the accounts at that time? Hu Feng nodded. Born in poverty, he is not the kind of master who is generous and cannot take money as money. Therefore, although Hu Feng was not particularly concerned about the money, he must remember the accounts clearly and was too lazy to rush it. Two groups of people climbing together, chatting while walking. At that time, Hu Feng picked up 8 snake gallstones of excellent quality in the Longshu River, and sold them to an old man in Lisher and Taoya Lane on Fulu Street. Although Hu Feng was young, he was a veteran. Half points, no offense on both sides, and got 2 big stacks of silver notes. After that, Hu Feng only spent a small amount of money to buy a whole street of mansions in Zhouqing, and obtained more than 30 land deeds for the delivery of yamen houses. At that time, the mansion in Zhouqing was still an extremely low value. The price, coupled with the intention of the Dali court to fill the old Longzhou from several places in Hangzhou and Yunzhou, in order to encourage the rich and common people from other states to immigrate to this place, many of the policies of the Longzhou government are uniquely beneficial to the people. Hu Feng handed over the rest of the house to Dong Shuijing to take care of it, and it was considered an occupation. In addition, because he often followed his grandfather on the streets when he was young, Hu Feng collected a lot of junk, mostly copper. Mirrors, ancient coins and other inconspicuous objects. These are all handed over to Dong Shuijing to help sell them, selling high and selling low. Hu Feng did not ask. Anyway, Dong Shuijing is only doing business. It doesn't matter if he loses all, if he earns it later, both parties dividends. When Dong Shuijing sold these junk goods at a high price and converted them into snow money, Hu Feng's 2 immortal money accounted for almost 30% of Dong Shuijing's wealth. Dong Shuijing said with a smile, "There are 2 ways now. First, we will break up the partnership and you will take back the principal and dividends. Second, keep the principal and collect the first dividends first, and then I will send them to your door every year. Come, it's too troublesome, 10 years, a jiazi, it's okay." Hu Feng said without hesitation. Second, dividends can be distributed once every 10 years. Wu Tijing asked casually, if sect master who chooses the first method, how many pieces of Guyu money can he get? Hu Feng was also a little curious. Dozens? A little less. 100, hundreds? Anyway, as long as there are more than 100 pieces of Guyu money, then Pai can easily get through the current difficulties. Dong Shuijing reported a number with a smile. 2,200 grain rain money. Hu Feng mistakenly thought that he had heard it wrong. Wu Tijing has only one feeling, is it such an easy thing to make money? Brother Dong, take me with you later? After 600 years I will take back this cave. Of course, if you think the deadline is too short, you can talk about it again, 800 years. Thirdly, of course I don't have so much cash. 10,000 grains of grain rain is not a small amount after all. So I will pay in 3 installments. The first one, 3,000 grains of grain rain, can be given to you now. The second, 1,800 years later, 4,000 pieces. The third payment after 300 years will be paid in full. These 400 years will be regarded as my overdue payment, and the interest will be calculated separately. How about that? Wu Tijing was amazed, no longer taking money seriously. He was also shocked by Dong Shuijing's generosity. He couldn't help but hit Hu Feng in the ribs. Wu Tijing didn't bother to speak in his heart and said bluntly, "Hu Feng, I think we can talk. Not to mention 800 years, 600 years, just relying on the cultivating qualifications of himself and Hu Feng, even if the sword immortal remains are not moved, can the sword intent still not be mastered?" Hu Feng shook his head and said, "Don't talk about that." Dong Shuijing also didn't want to force others to be difficult, and said with a smile, "It's okay, I changed my mind one day, remember to find me first, you can always agree?" Hu Feng nodded and said, "This is no problem." Before the group reached the 2 adjacent thatched huts halfway up the mountain, Dong Shuijing stopped and said goodbye. "Go back, Palace Master Huang still has a lot of business to deal with." Hu Feng, to be honest, I don't see it, even people like me who are not very particular think that your sect is too shabby, and say that the wonton shop I used to be may be a bit better than yours. Hu Feng said with a smile, "The next time you come here, it will definitely be different." After talking about things, Dong Shuijing took a sip of water and went down the mountain with the female crown Huangli. When she reached the foot of the mountain, she sacrificed a talisman boat and rode away in the clouds. It can be said that it came and went in a hurry and it was resolute. Wu Tijing has always seldom recognized someone. This Dong Shuijing is a kind person. Hu Feng nodded. "My grandfather once said that shrewdness, intelligence and wisdom are 3 different realms. He also said that a person born with wisdom roots is easy to be affected by the mundane world, but as long as they have wisdom roots, they can be more. It's easy to change your mind and turn back. When my grandfather went to Lao Sishan to find me, he saw Dong Shuijing's face at first sight, and said that he looked old at the age of 3, and he would definitely be a man with money in the future. If you make a lot of money, you can keep it. In fact, Dong Shuijing stopped studying for a long time, and made his fortune by opening wonton shops and selling glutinous rice wine. After coming to this ancient temple for several months, the scribes were not accompanied by book boys or servants. They only brought a few salutes, clothes and books, and everything was kept simple. There are quite a lot of books in the temple, but half of them are ruined and there are many insects. There is a small pond in front of the Daxiong Palace, in which there are dozens of golden carp and crucian carp with brilliant scales. According to the records of the mountain records in history, there were Xianjun Irin who held several small dragons in the pond. All of them were more than a foot long with 4 claws on the head of a snake. There were nearby pilgrims from young to ancient times. Every time they came to the temple to burn incense, they would see a few looking at the pool. I didn't see any signs of growing old and dying. It is rumored that there were thieves from other places who had heard the wind several times, sneaked into the temple at night, captured the little dragons and put them in the water bottle, carried them away, all escaped halfway and returned to the temple pool on their own. The water bottle was sealed. It's a pity that after a heavy rain, the little dragons all flew into the sky with the clouds and disappeared. Now, the golden carp and golden crucian carp in the water are said to have been infused with dragon energy, so they turned from blue and black to golden at first. They listened to Sanskrit for a long time. Morning bells and twilight drums, here I hear Taoism in practice and asked to turn around. The scholar in Russian is a great pilgrim, a monk in the temple. I saw him speak well before and he has a pure accent in the capital. I suspect that this person is a dignitary, and he often takes the initiative to talk and attack. Later, the scholar explained that he was not from an official family. Over time, the monks respected him. The color gradually faded, and the arrogance turned thick. There is a novice who is sure that this person is a big businessman. He often asks about many foreign countries, states and counties. He often invites scribes to climb the mountain and enjoy the scenery. Because of another cliff on the top of the mountain, white clouds often rise, and the clouds are extremely wide and condensed like a jade fat, like the sea of snow Ji, only the mountains stand. The little novice only needs to knock on the window and say the word cloud rising, and the scribes will put on straw sandals and hold 2 sticks made of mangosteen roots after excavation. Surrounding the mountains, when climbing the mountain, you don't know whether the mountain rises into the clouds or the clouds meet the mountains. There is a clean and cold spring on the side of the temple, and the mountain monks use a long tube of green bamboo to introduce it into the kitchen room to make tea sweet. At that time, the old scribe lived here for a long time, copied scriptures every day, and carried an ancient inkstone with him. There is an imperial tablet pavilion on the back mountain, which was erected by the previous emperor for the Empress Dowager's blessing. There are still dozens of stone tablets next to the pavilion. Most of them are local officials praying for rain. A few acres and so on. In the territory of Yuzhou, there are different days for hundreds of miles. Since ancient times, there has been a vision of thunder on a sunny day at noon. Moreover, the water and air are blocked by the mountains. If 2 soldiers meet, the battlefield will face each other. Therefore, there are many torrential rains in the ancient temples in the mountains, and the momentum is astonishing. Going to the ravine is in a hurry, often as short as a cup of tea, as long as a meal, and you can see the sun again. The natives all say that there is a hidden dragon descending into the human world, trailing its tail across this mountain. Historically, this ancient temple has suffered many disasters and lightning strikes, and has been destroyed and rebuilt again and again. There was a night-watching monk who witnessed a strange scene. Electric fire was intertwined, entering through the window and shining brightly up the eaves. The sky fire burned the gold powder Buddha face of the statue in the house. After the fire was turned off, the Buddha statue's face was like tears, but the pillars and windows of the hall were not damaged. There was also a Buddha statue riding a lion. When the current abbot and monk are stationed here in Sisi, he begins to teach the FA in the ascended seat. Soon after that, whenever there is thunder and lightning at night, the top of a tower will bloom golden, and if the meteors are scattered. But there are no strange visions anywhere else. The temple is full of incense for a while, and there is an endless stream of good men and women who are willing to bypass many Taoist temples and temples to worship incense here. I never thought that this monk was a monk and a pilgrim, and explained in detail how the owl tail on the roof that he drew and repaired was able to prevent lightning strikes and skyfire, and why the spire in the temple was plated with a layer of gold and silver, and what is the material of the tower core column that goes directly to the ground, why is it called Lei Gongzhu in ancient books, and what is the purpose of building the dragon cave underground. In short, according to the old monk, there is actually no so mysterious, it has nothing to do with ghosts and auspiciousness. After that, inside and outside the temple, whether it was a half understood or a complete understanding, they all felt that the lightning strikes the sky again as if it was meaningless. Ancient and bizarre, if you can see through it, you will not be surprised. If you see through it, it will be worthless. It's just that the old monk did this, which directly caused the incense that was getting better to be left out again. The old monk asked, of the 84,000 schools of Buddhism, only the law school is the most ascetic. Chinjusher is not a Buddhist, why is he only interested in our law school? The Vinaya can be said to be strict in precepts, and the practice of keeping the precepts is recognized as the most painful. It's difficult first, then easy and difficult. Besides, I don't dare to lie to the great monk. I just practice asceticism in the temple. After leaving the temple gate, there are other ways of practicing. Hearing this, the old monk nodded and said, I have worshipped the incense here and worshipped the Buddha, and when I left the mountain gate, it is also a practice. The scribe asked, every living being has karmic obstacles, how can we teach the doctrine of karma? The old monk smiled and said, as for cause and effect, the ancient sages don't have to believe it, the stubborn and foolish people won't believe it, the clever and villain can't believe it, and the middle-aged people can't believe it. It's better to believe it if you have it or not. After the lightning and thunder in the sky, it suddenly rained heavily, like a hole in a huge lake hanging from the sky, and the water poured into the world wantonly. The old monk sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. The scribe gently twisted the rosary beads. The sound of the eaves is like a waterfall, and the rain curtain is like a curtain. The water was deep and silent, and the rain did not last long. At the beginning of the rain, the sun is warm and the wind is warm, and the green hills are dripping with rain. The old monk opened his eyes and said with a soft smile, the peaches and plums in the city are troubled by wind and rain. Chin Pingon smiled knowingly and nodded, spring is in Shito Shepherd's purse. In the southern boundary of Aquarius Island, Chin Pingon did not travel much. Except for the last time he walked a mountain and water journey with Senior Song, every time he went south, Chin Pingon took a ferry to the old dragon city. He had previously promised Zhang Kaiqin and Hong Yanghua of King Xingfeng that they would go to King Xingguo to attend the crowning ceremony of the prince. The Lu clan of Qingxing Kingdom, because it is located south of Chidu, broke away from the status of a vassal state of Dali and reorganized the old mountains and rivers. The Emperor Lu clan is not young now and he is almost old. Qi Qingyu, but for some unknown reason, Emperor Lu made his youngest son as the heir of a country, and made an exception to hold an external ceremony for the young prince, which was also a kind of paving way. The new national teacher is Hong Yangba's old friend on the mountain, and the owner of King Fufeng, a female swordsman, Zhang Kaiqin, belongs to a family that is not in Qingxing country, but in Meiji country, which is farther south. A few strands of snow-white aura escaped from the corners of his mouth. He stretched out his hand and caught it all and patted it into his mouth again. There seemed to be some residue left. All inhaled into the mouth, his face is full of intoxication. The man who originally seemed to be sick, his pale face turned ruddy at a speed visible to the naked eye. Bai Mao said in a deep voice, have enough to eat and drink, can we talk now? Shihu laughed heartily and said, it is certain that there is such a military book, but it is difficult to say whether it is high or low, and there is a guess that it is a magic weapon. Bai Mao, you said that you are a dead bone in a tomb, and you did not lead soldiers to fight in your lifetime. The military commander is a pitiful idiot who was beheaded by his boss for his dereliction of duty, just a small magistrate. What is the use of this military book? Wipe your ass? Bai Mao closed the crane's cloak and said coldly, don't worry about it. Birds have their own ways and snakes have their own ways. You and I have no grievances or enmity, just go your own way. Shihu nodded and said, let's go our separate ways and cooperate when we have the chance. A strong wind blew past the top of the mountain, and the boy's sleeves rattled, and the long sword on his back, the hilt of the sword exposed from the sheath swayed slightly, making a small sound. The young man hurriedly moved to the side and stood against the wind. The woman holding the umbrella raised her arms to support her forehead. You said that you are a pure warrior with only 4 realms, what are you doing here on the top of the mountain? Come, see the scenery, just go. These suspicious people, busy attending the wedding banquet in Xuanhuan Mountain, mistakenly think that you are a stubborn stubble, and most likely will not stop you from going down the mountain. What's more, Bai Mao just deliberately opened his mouth to provoke you, and then pretended to be jealous of you and didn't want to take action. In fact, he was blocking disaster for you. Still ignorant of the stakes, the sword-carrying youth still said to himself, "That day the children of the Zhang clan in Chao County, and the immortal master of the Jin-Kai faction, are all amazing? Tell me the story." Probably because he sent 2 snows to spend money, Palace Master Bai was in a bad mood and sneered, "The 2 clansmen and direct descendants are all unattainable figures in the sky. You are a crappy fake sword cultivator. Don't be embarrassed here, get out of here, go slow, the Palace Master will make you a porter." At the same time, Bai Mao said in his heart, "Qin Rin, get out of here quickly." Seeing the suspicious look on the young man's face, the scribe in Hechuang immediately said in a hurry, "Young man, this guy and the man with the pot are in the same group. Do you really think the water boiled in the pot is the internal organs of livestock? Hurry up. Go. You idiot, do you really think that people are better than ghosts in this lawless ghost world? Those 2 snows cost money. Well, you can't escape, pay me back in the next life. As long as they join forces, I am doomed if you can't fight it, there's no reason to take your life for a fool like you." The guy stood up and said, "Qin Rin, although before tonight we have never been masked, but as a senior in Jianghu, I am going to tell you something heartfelt." The cloaked scribe sighed, hesitated again and again but still didn't plan to shoot. "This is the mantra of the stone pot." He said that he would dig his heart out. The young man with the sword on his back simply stretched his hand around, took off the hilt that was glued to the scabbard with peach glue, put it into his sleeve and said with a smile, "Your name is Dendrobium? Be careful, don't kill yourself, I am an immortal. Swordsmanship." As a result, the boy was carrying an empty scabbard. That headless female ghost sighed faintly, and she was so arrogant when she was about to die, "Then I won't save this young man. If I save this time, it depends on the young man's behavior that doesn't shed tears without seeing the coffin. How long can a world that eats ghosts live?" It's just that she was inevitably puzzled, how did she come all the way to this hinterland? For some reason, the man's face changed dramatically, and just as he was about to speak, a strange phenomenon appeared outside the mountain, and the treasures were shining brightly. In a blink of an eye, they came to the top of the mountain from a dozen miles away, and saw the pair of young girls, a pair of beautiful people, the former carrying a sword, holding a whip, riding a snow-white horse, and the latter riding a xuanhuan. A handsome young man with a sword and a pearl robe, chasing the wind with a purple whip. Behind them was a burly man with a naked upper body and bright red tattoos all over his body. Flying through the air, galloping with lightning speed, followed by the 2 people in front. The 3 fell to the ground, and the white horse and xuanhuan each turned into a talisman, which was twisted by the boy and girl at their fingertips, and then put into their arms. Just relying on this family property, the scribe he cloak was envious and coveted, but he did not forget to stagger his figure, and tried his best to stay away from these chi cultivators. The girl's eyes were sharp and she said, "How do you say it?" The brawny man glanced at the scribe in the crane cloak. A ghost with a career and no sins. After his death, he was obsessed with obsessions and set up a prostitution temple, but he couldn't become a heroic spirit in one place. Turning his eyes to the boy with the sword on his back, "A living person seems to be a warrior." Looking at the woman holding the umbrella again, "Headless ghost, at noon on the autumnal equinox, died of an executioner who was full of young energy." Finally, he looked at the frying pan and the man, "Chi practitioners like cannibals do a lot of evil, and are not as good as those ghosts in the mountains." The young man sneered, "Then cut it." The sword light flashed and a human head rolled down, just fell into the oil pan, and a head thumped up and down in the boiling water. The girl's face was full of disgust, and a dazzling golden light burst out from her sleeves, shattering the frying pan in her head. Accompanied by a ring of bells, the golden light swirled and returned to the girl's sleeve, carrying a long-lasting golden firefly in the air. The strong man looked at the sick man again. "He's a traitor, he's all the way, and he's still a monster who has been refined into a human form." The girl looked bright and asked, "But the remnants of the wild?" The strong man shook his head and said, "The native demon clan." The girl looked a little regretful, and there was no merit in the battle. The young man smiled and said, "Behead again." The merchant picked up the cargo load with 1 foot, smashed it at the boy and jumped out of the cliff again, but was still stabbed in the back vest by an arc of sword light. The sword light rose again and cut off his head. A slap the size of a strong man's fan swung out, and casually beat the peddler into powder. The young man sneered, "I want to hide the tricks of the worms." The girl took off a string of golden bells around her waist and shook it gently, and a wisp of black smoke from the cliff slammed into the air, turning into hundreds of sheets of white paper. Xuanhuan smashed the white paper into pieces, and the strong man opened his mouth again and took a breath, then condensed the scattered demon blood into a bead, and swallowed it together with the demon pill in his belly. For a while there was only the sound of the wind on the top of the mountain. The umbrella girl ghost also stood up, hesitated for a while. She still chose to stand beside the sword-backed boy. The cloaked scribe swallowed. Since the other party didn't drive people down the mountain, he planned to ask for mercy. This girl's film is obviously a direct immortal master from Jianghu Xinfu, so it is qualified to have a Zhu Bing general as a squire. As for the young man, let alone, he is clearly a sword immortal. This is the second time in this life that Palace Master Bai has seen sword immortal. It was still the ignorant young man with a sword on his back, who was the first to speak to break the silence, put his hands behind his back, looked at the young man who looked like his peers, nodded his head, with a look of admiration from seniors looking at juniors, and said solemnly, "I never thought that I could meet a fellow man in such a ghost place." The cloaked scribe standing at the back was completely stunned by this young man named Qin Ren. "You kid is really shameless, don't shake your hands when you have the ability to talk big." Fortunately, the young Jianxian didn't pay any attention to this brainless person. The girl asked softly, "When did Sister Zhang come? Are you meeting us at Xuanhuan Mountain? With a few of us, can we go all the way from the foot of the mountain to the two mountain mansions?" The boy frowned and said, "My master may not come, so this outing experience must be conceded." The girl's face seemed to be lost, but in fact she was secretly overjoyed. Inside and outside of a high mountain, black clouds connect with birds, and the green walls carry the sound of apes. The umbrella girl looked at the pair of teenagers and girls with high identities, but the world seemed to like them and they were low on the ground. She likes him, he likes her, but she doesn't know which one she likes. Crane cloak scribes complained endlessly. It turned out to be a wave of unresolved waves. There are only 3 cross-Jianglong dragons that can't be provoked from the top of the mountain. How come even the local snakes from Xuanhuan Mountain have come? Is it possible that they will meet on a narrow road and come to a fight? The sword-carrying boy was still saying some shameless words over there. "Palace Master Bai, just have 100 hearts. With me here the sky won't fall." Crane cloak scribe smiled bitterly. "Then I thank you." The sword-backed boy nodded and said, "I have always had a good relationship with the surnamed Bai. Since they are my own brothers, there is no need to be polite." Sword of Coming Chapter 10-14. A mountain wearing a black official robe with a powerful presence. Although he belongs to the spiritual shrine, he is very ostentatious. Lingji gently opened the curtain, and witnessed the flickering sword light here, and slowly lowered the curtain. Mrs. Zhang from Tianchao County really picked up the treasure. On the side is a woman wearing a power fence, with a graceful figure, riding a peach horse in red clothes. One person and one ride, keeping pace with the black and gold sedan chair. It's just that it is different from the talisman mounts of the previous boys and girls. This peach blossom horse that can fly through the clouds and ride the fog is a genuine magical horse. Behind them was a group of entourages who were 20 feet tall, or covered with living creatures and snakes, or surrounded their chins with a string of bones and skulls. Cone weird and hair-raising. The mountain reminded softly, "Fourth Miss, when you arrive at Pomo Peak, don't fight with them if you don't agree with each other, it will make it difficult for the lower officials. If you accidentally miss the important affairs of the mansion, the lower officials will die even more." Morse. The woman said brightly, "A young sword immortal with boundless aptitude, how dare you provoke him, Memberly? Don't worry, I promise not to speak when I get there." The old man of the mountain who was exposed, his face was as gloomy as water, but his mouth was laughing. He clasped his fists and shook a few times. "Then I will thank the 4th young lady first." This team stopped at a distance of dozens of meters outside the cliff, and the black clouds rolled in an instant, like a lichen in the sky. The woman stared at the handsome Zhang's disciple through the power fence tool, and when she saw this young sword fairy up close, she couldn't take her eyes away. If she can marry this young man, she will be able to compare the eldest and third sisters, right? Needless to say, eldest sister, she was married and wronged her. The third sister is really a good marriage. She is about to get married to the direct son of the water lord of a giant lake in the Jiangshan country. It is said that she is recruiting a daughter to marry her. In fact, she has already decided on such a quick son-in-law, but her father likes to be lively and happy. Shan is now short of money in the treasury. Last time he was beaten by the Zhang clan of Tianchao County. The casualties were heavy, and the soldiers were almost unable to pay. His father was quite fond of the few earth immortal monks who successively obtained the status of the imperial courts of various countries. I am afraid especially that Xianxia, whose father is only short of sticking grass. Recently, Xuanhuan Mountain has been busy building a great formation to protect the mountain. He spends money like flowing water and he is short of money. I received some dowry gifts and congratulations for the marriage proposal. It is said that this was the inspiration that my father got from a certain news in a Shanshui residence not long ago. My mother is also very obsessed with the novels of the talented and beautiful in the market. What about throwing hydrangea, guessing lantern riddles, kissing me and me under the moonlight? Are all her favorites. The sedan chair swayed and the bloated mountain master stretched out his hand to lift the sedan chair curtain, bowed his head and bent over to walk out. His voice was loud, he didn't talk nonsense, he said the business first. Xiaoguan Li Tang, who is of the ancestral temple at the foot of Xuanhuan Mountain, and also leads the various tribes of Xuanhuan Mountain. The military envoy of 3,000 soldiers and horses will give you a few words for the two lords. The mountain coughed a few times, moistened his throat, turned slightly sideways, clasped his fists high, and changed to a dignified tone and a strong voice. Tianchao County Sword repairs Zhang Ye's feet. The Jianghu faction favors the blue peaks and golden threads. Whoever comes as a guest, whatever you want. Traveling, it is fine to go to the town, but you too remember to stop at the foot of the mountain and do not climb the mountain, otherwise it will be regarded as a provocation with the Xuanhuan and Xuanhuan. That little old friendship, dare to climb a mountain and cross the border, kill wuxia and make a decisive decision. Zhang Yujia twitched the corners of his mouth, not concealing the sarcasm on his face. A monarch of this government, such a powerful official, he really thinks he is the emperor of this place. Why don't he just call himself a widow and end with the word chin? The mountain, who looked like a local tyrant, finished reading the decree, and immediately changed his face again, a little flattering, and smiled. The government's decree must not be disobeyed, and I hope Zhang Jianxian and Jean girl will take it to heart. That's good. Don't mention Zhang Yujiao, just say that the little girl with thin skin and tender meat is not very old, but her seniority in the Jianghu faction is frighteningly high, just because this little girl's master is the one who even owns the two palace lords. Cheng Qian, who must be afraid of a bit, is now the protector of the Qingxing kingdom. He is a well-known land immortal. He is proficient in the three methods of water, fire and thunder. He was then made into a golden fire bell, which could exorcise evil but demons, and it was easy. He is proficient in water techniques, can breathe rivers, and has hundreds of soldiers under his command, all of whom are half-human and half-spiritual masters, especially the real masters of lightning. There are many traces, there are many friends on the mountain, and there are more enemies. In short, the idea is very hard. Li Yin said with a heartfelt smile. Girl Jean, after the tour, return to the immortal mansion and say hello to your master on behalf of the subordinate officer. The girl nodded with a smile. I must bring it for Li Juanrong. Although it was the first time for a girl to go out to practice, she was not lacking in this superficial sense of the world. Hearing that the little girl used military face instead of the mountain god, Li Tang immediately smiled, and became more and more pleasing to the female cultivator of the Jianghu faction. The words have been brought to the fore. Li Tang was about to go home, but his young lady stared blankly at Zhang Ye's feet. Li Tang felt helpless. The young Jianxiu from the Zhang family in Tianchao County, no matter how powerful Xuanhuan Mountain was, you can just kidnap back to the mountains to be the husband of the village. Besides, by luck, you robbed Zhang Yu of the feet and returned to the mountains. What should you do with the faces in front of the mansion? Li Yin had to help introduce. This is the fourth miss of our Xuanhuan Mountain. The two lords are the most favorite and they are willing to pick the stars and the moon. Now on the Xuanhuan Mountain side, the eldest daughter is married, and the second son likes to travel far, and this time, it is the third girl from Xuanhuan Mountain who is looking for relatives. Zhao and Yu of Xuanhuan Mountain belong to the halfway couple. Before that, there were Taoist companions and sons of Taoism on the mountain. Therefore, it can be said that both of them are biological. The woman in red from Mi Li, otherwise Xuanhuan Mountain would not be able to give her the peach blossom horse as a mount, and replace it with a small remote country that cannot produce a chi practitioner in the middle five. Easily Song Zhanshan is king. Fortunately, the fourth young lady didn't entangle Zhang Ye's feet. She just straightened her slender waist, glanced at the girl beside him, sneered, and then she stretched out two green jade fingers and lifted the corner of the power fence, intentionally or not. He raised his chest and said with a smile, Young Master Zhang, my concubine's boudoir name is Xiaomei, we will meet again if you are destined to. Zhang Yujiao turned a deaf ear. One road and one sedan chair, and led a large group of squires to gradually move away from Spomo Peak. Jean Louis smiled and asked, "Rainfoot, what shall we say next?" Zhang Yujiao said, "Then go to the town at the foot of the mountain to see if you want to climb the mountain, and then you can see the situation there and then decide." Jean Lu nodded, looking at the posture. As long as Zhang Yujiao chose to climb the mountain, she would follow him to the mountain gate without hesitation. Palace Master Bai, who said nothing from the beginning to the end, was filled with emotion. The courage of these immortal masters of genealogy was different from their lonely ghosts, who had the virtue of not being afraid of heaven and earth wherever they went. It is said that this young girl who is on the green peak not only casts a good child, but also worships a good master and goes out to experience. She is not surrounded by a Zhu Bing squire given by the master, or a juvenile sword from the same noble family Xianmen. Fairies walk together. Zhang Yujiao looked at the group of local people, and asked, "Please tell everyone, when does Xuanhuan Mountain start recruiting primary daughters, and what is the specific time?" The sword-backed boy crossed his arms around his chest. Palace Master Bai pretended to be deaf and dumb, for fear of saying the wrong word and he would end up being slashed again. Only the headless female ghost holding the umbrella did not seem to be particularly afraid of the young sword immortal. She took out a green willow leaf from her sleeve, and as the willow leaf spun, a crisp female voice sounded, reporting back. "Sword immortal, there are about 2.5 hours left." Zhang Yujiao nodded and said to the girl beside him, "Then go to Xuanhuan Mountain on foot." The girl is on his side. Obviously everything is easy to talk about, just nod. Zhang Yujiao looked at the female ghost. "If the girl is willing, you can walk with us, provided that you don't be afraid of being misunderstood by Xuanhuan Mountain and wearing small shoes afterwards." Carrying the oil paper umbrella, she leaned sideways and gave a blessing. Zhang Yujiao and Jinlu went down the mountain with the Zhu Bing, unique to the Jianghu faction. The ghost girl with the umbrella walked slowly, pulling a distance not too far away from them. At the top of Splashing Ink Peak, only the sword-carrying youth and Palace Master Bai were left with big eyes and small eyes. "Palace Master Bai is still on his way? Don't worry, there are still 2 hours before the marriage ceremony. What about you? What are you doing here?" "Continue to appreciate the moon." They were silent for so long, and finally Bai Mao took the lead and said, "The scumbag and the belly-eater, they are all poor ghosts. A man named Shanzhe Yeshio who has just succeeded in refining his shape. A little bit of my family's wealth is like the snow money I threw away in the past. I can eat it right away. It's all used to improve my cultivation and replenish my spiritual energy. I just want an instant result. Or a backer. It is easy to cause death, and it is not worth it to be a wedding dress for others." The previous young sword immortal slashed and slashed again and again. It was eaten by the Zhu Bing of the Jianghu faction, and there was not a single bit of dregs left. "All that's left is the paper
Palace
money on
Master
the
Bai
ground."
was determined in his heart.
The young man said,
"Brother Chin is
"What
really
nonsense.
happy.
One
Everyone
word
who
is a
sees it
decision.
has a share.
It's just
and
that
the
this
account
ghost
is
who
divided
claimed the
between
title
5
of
and
Palace
5.
Master quickly became suspicious in his heart. This young man promised so happily, couldn't it be the hidden Yamazawa Yeshio? Is it a ruthless master who knows black and eats black? So Bai Mao distanced himself from the sword-carrying boy and asked with a smile, "Young Xia is so young, he has the strength to refine the qi of the martial arts. It is either rich or expensive. Otherwise, how could he have such an impressive achievement in martial arts? A child of a wealthy family who is traveling? There are not a few guards around the young man. There are qi practitioners in Yishio Sanxian, but almost all of the great martial arts masters in the pure martial arts have a history and a clear division. This is the consensus on the mountain. Especially after the end of the battle between Lu and Shen on the Banzhou continent, in the south of Aquarius continent, almost all the wealthy and noble families who had suffered so much, became more and more energetic, cultivated family assassins and dead men, and searched and selected those children with good roots. From a young age, let the martial arts master who is enshrined in the family teach boxing techniques. No matter the cost, eat medicated meals 3 times a day, soak in medicine pots every day, beat and boil the muscles and bones. Even if the seedlings are pulled out to help them grow, they will not hesitate to go the number of ways to eat food. He has quickly risen from the 3 realms of body refining to the realm of qi refining, and he only needs to be in his 20s or 30s to be able to be on his own. Looking at this young man, if it is not the kind of qi trainer who deliberately pretends to be a pure martial artist, then the age and realm of the other party are right. Got it. When contacting the previous boys, exporting into a chapter, Bai Mao always felt that his guess was almost the truth. Anyway, as long as it's not the capricious Yamazawa Yeshio, Bai Mao was an official in his lifetime. What kind of hero is missing? I have only been down the mountain for a few days and I haven't done a few heroic deeds yet. The straw shoe boy said indifferently, either call me by my name, or call me young Master Chen. Bai Mao was full of slander in his heart. This is because the fourth miss of Xuanhuan Mountain called Jianghu Jiao is Mr. Zhang, and you are jealous? When we walked to the cliff together, the ground was full of paper money carried from the shattered shelves, as well as various origami houses, cars and beauties, and those gold ingots and silver ingots, which were different from ordinary white shops selling paper money, was the place where the paper money was sold. The merchant wrote the year of the country in cinnabar pen. Different from the way that chi practitioners choose some copper coins as magic weapons, to choose copper coins, they must find those dynasty names with prosperous national power and beautiful meanings. The more people there are, the more yang qi will naturally be contaminated. On the other hand, the base money of these paper money is often the year name when the national strength has weakened to the extreme, so it is mostly cast when the king of the country was in power, and the yin is heavy. When someone was burning paper money at the grave, the merchant used some kind of blindfold. It seemed that the burn was finished, but in fact the merchant was robbed halfway. The sword-carrying youth surnamed Qin, along with Palace Master Bai, who hangs the official seal and military talisman on his waist, each pick up their own, and the well water does not violate the river water. Bai Mao deliberately chose those car and horse lofts, maids with ingenious origami, and there are always about 100 snow money. Seeing the sword-backed boy squatting on the ground, he took out the fire book from his sleeve and burned all the pile of paper money he had just obtained. Palace Master Bai was confused and couldn't help asking, "Little brother, what are you doing?" These paper money can be sold by wealthy people in the market who know the goods, but they can sell a lot of real money. If you convert them, you can sell dozens of snow for money. The young man said, as the old saying goes, money is like flowing water and money, and it is something that can be obtained by hand, but it is only said that these paper money were originally burned to the dead. When they arrived in the underworld, they were already short of jeans and shorts. Now they are burned, and the next it is equivalent to an extra sum of money that should belong to them. Palace Master Bai was speechless. After a long silence he said, "You are kind." The young man corrected, "I'm a bold artist. I'm not afraid of walking at night. What is this windfall money drizzle?" He stood up and asked, "Go down the mountain together?" Bai Mao nodded. "I always feel that this stunned young man who popped out from nowhere is stupid, and his luck is really good, and he can escape the catastrophe." The boy suddenly said, "I seem to still owe you 2 snows for money." Bai Mao shook his sleeves and said with a smile, "It's all here." As a result, the young man glanced at Palace Master Bai and said, "I only served as a sesame official in my lifetime, but I have never been a high-ranking official." Bai Mao smiled bitterly but did not refute anything. Together they walked towards the sedan chair, and the 4 porters who were always on the spot. The young man smiled and said, "It's all said that you have to throw things away and people are more dead than people. I didn't think so before, but now I understand the subtlety of these old sayings. Look at Zhang Jianxian in Tianqiao County, and then look at the mountain god. The 8 carry the big sedan chair and finally look at you. I will feel sad for you. People go out with a lot of money inlaid with gold and jade. You are better, Mr. Bai. If you have 10 words on your waist, you will cheer up and return to the palace master. Why don't you set the gate of the mansion at the foot of Xuanhuan Mountain as a mountain gate?" Bai Mao smiled embarrassedly, stretched out his hand to pinch, chanting words, turning the sedan chair and the porter into a few sheets of origami, and then reaching out to grab, the white paper fluttered into his sleeve. This set of outings was bought with the moneyman in the early years, and it cost Palace Master Bai several snows. As for this ignorant and reckless young man, his speech is a bit ugly, but he is a good person. It's just that Palace Master Bai became more and more angry the more he thought about it, and his words were not so unpleasant. Where did he come from? In addition to teaching martial arts, the big family also taught this kind of lip-smacking kung fu? The young man asked. "The umbrella girl in front of me who looks like a well-known lady and a good-looking woman, does Palace Master Bai know where she came from?" Bai Mao looked at the oil paper umbrella and embroidered shoes in front of her. "But which one of your eyes sees a headless female ghost as beautiful? Could it be that your boy is only so eloquent towards women?" Palace Master Bai is still unclear for the time being. The wickedness of the sword-carrying boy who burned paper money was actually recorded on his Bai Mao's head. Bai Mao hesitated for a moment and chose some words that were not taboo. "I only know that her surname is Lu, and of course she has nothing to do with the Lu family of Qingxing Kingdom. They all say that she died for the scholar's love and was beheaded by the executioner to show the public. He was not included in the genealogy before he was alive, and naturally he was not included in the ancestral grave after death, and he was also a pitiful person. Is the horse under the fourth lattice a real horse? It is absolutely true. Since this kind of mountain spirit can control the wind and has a high cultivation realm, one can imagine it. It cannot be said that it is a big monster who has long been trained and has obtained the Tao. Cannot be a cave-dwelling realm? Zhao and Yu, the two daughters of the palace monarchs, can use it as a mount. The eldest young lady, the second son, and the third girl who got married tonight seem to have no such treatment. Bai Mao recalled the previous danger and asked, "You are so poor that you can't even afford an iron sword? You can only pretend to be a sword hilt. What do you think? It's none of your business if you have money or not. Can't you just chop a peach tree and make a peach in the rivers and lakes? I call it showing the enemy to be weak." Bai Mao, who was speechless for a long time, raised his chin towards the three figures at the front. "Seriously, you are a lucky boy. You can meet them. If you come a little later, the consequences will be disastrous. The traitor and the one who likes to eat people's liver and intestines are not good people, and their realm is not low. When the two of them join forces, even in this realm, they are all famous. Isn't it still being slaughtered by a young man whose hair has not grown evenly?" Bai Mao said with a smile. "Jianxian, the master of Zhang family from Tianqiao County, is a genius of cultivation, known as a swordsman, a genius among immortal materials. Do you know what a swordsman is? Practice qi in the world. There are only two types of scholars, sword cultivators and qi practitioners other than sword cultivators." The straw shoe boy said indifferently, "I'm also a swordsman, don't you know this? Are you stupid?" Imperity was almost so angry that it was engulfed in smoke. The young man crossed his arms around his chest and asked, "Since the Zhang family in Tianqiao County is so arrogant, why not just level the Xuanhuan mountain and restore the heaven and earth to a brighter world, which is also a great merit?" Bai Mao sneered, "Since you are experienced in all corners of the world, why would you still ask such an idiot question?" The boy said, "Don't be ashamed to ask." Bai Mao rubbed his brows, hesitating whether to leave this little and go with the umbrella girl ghost surnamed Lu. The young man took out an oiled paper bag from his sleeve. After opening it, it was filled with fragrant sauce meat. It wasn't that the old-fashioned shop didn't have this skill. He spread out his palm and handed it to Palace Master Bai beside him. "Good intentions to take it." Bai Mao smiled, stretched out his hand and pushed it back. "It's just that people and ghosts have different paths, so I can't eat this for the time being. When he enters the cave palace realm and becomes a ghost king in the middle five realm, he will be able to restore his desire to speak." Just heard. Is the first time to be a human being, is it even more of being a ghost? Walking in Zhang Yujiao and Jean Louis at the front of the mountain road, the dialogue between the straw shoe boy and the ghost at the end is actually clear and audible. She can't do it just by her cultivation base in the four realms, but she has a mysterious talisman given by her master. After the sacrifice, it was extremely concealed, allowing her to hear the subtle sounds within a mile radius. Zhang Yujiao said in his heart, "This young man of unknown origin is a martial artist, either in the third or fourth realm. Considering his age, he is quite impressive, and he is actually a half-assed formation master, although not the kind of upright master. Buying is a mountain formation master, but he knows the Chiman formation method without using aura. You may not have noticed that there are a few dead branches on the ground before you are on the top of Pomo Peak. You are very particular about the orientation. If you are alone against him, if you are not careful, he secretly takes the lead, and once you are punched close by him, you may suffer a big loss." Jean Louis was shocked and said, "Could this guy be the kind of person who is skilled in the world?" Zhang Yujiao shook his head, "Definitely not. He has no spiritual energy in his body, and he is undoubtedly a pure martial artist. Judging from his posture and conversation, he is probably from a similar background to me. They are all liked and cultivated by big families." Jean Louis smiled and said, "How can he compare with you?" Zhang Yujiao said indifferently, "It's just that the body is similar, and it doesn't say that the post-sky encounter and the realm cultivation base." Jean Louis suddenly said angrily, "This Xuanhuan mountain is really a thief and rampant. Do you really think that no one can take care of them? Wait, sooner or later they will be wiped out by the master led by troops." Zhang Yujiao smiled. These cultivators of genealogy who were born too well, always seem to be so innocent and naive. Xuanhuan mountain has been able to stand here in the past few years, and it has a deep foundation. Those deliberately displayed beyond the surface combat power, there are still some hidden killers, as well as the intertwined human relationships in 4 countries including the surrounding Qingxin kingdom. That's why they were able to easily stop the attack of nearly 30 Qi practitioners from the Zhang clan in Tianqiao County last time. Even before they even went to the small town at the foot of Xuanhuan Mountain, their vitality was severely damaged. 2 raids and a fair fight, Zhang was seriously damaged. Fortunately, except for the 2 cultivators who died in battle, the rest were all injured, but there was a lot of wear and tear of spiritual tools, especially the attack and defense of dozens of cultivators. Everything was damaged to varying degrees. It was just compensation for repairing and refining things after the war. Zhang held a family ancestral hall discussion after the event, and made a rough calculation. Facts have proved that Zhang clan of Tianqiao County still underestimated a Xuanhuan mountain that he thought was just a group of rabble and stragglers. You must know that among the Qi practitioners who participated in the encirclement and suppression of Xuanhuan Mountain, there are 6 Qi practitioners in the middle 5 realm, and 2 seniors are worshippers and guest ministers who are extremely relied on by the family. Dan Dixian, a talisman who has been famous for a long time, has the supernatural ability to spread beans into soldiers. As a result, in the 3 battles with Xuanhuan Mountain, the old used nearly 300 talos of different grades. Fortunately, the Zhang family in Tianqiao County has a warrior with a golden body on the battlefield, otherwise it would be difficult to get a result that could barely be considered a complete retreat. The former Li Yang, nicknamed Li Xuanhuan, was a rich and powerful tycoon before his death. After his death, he somehow became the mountain of one of the 2 prostitution temples in Xuanhuan Mountain. The genealogy rank can be spoken of. If it was north of Dadu, how could a mountain like Li Dang dare to occupy the mountain and set up a shrine to seek death? The Dali court once erected a monument on the top of a continent and mountains. Was it a joke? On the territory of one continent at that time, how many prostitution temples of small vassal states were banned by the Dali court? Not dozens or hundreds, but thousands, and some even say 2,000 and 3,000. The problem is that the south of Dadu is no longer in the Dali court, and all kinds of mountain spirits, water monsters, ghosts appear all at once, bypassing the strong national power of the Yunxiao dynasty in the south, and selecting those Qi practitioners and immortals. Small countries with few houses, especially those gods whose ancestral temples and golden bodies were destroyed by Dali's iron cavalry, have appeared in the world one after another. Officials take what they need, the former earns the incense of the world and sews up the golden body, and the latter takes real gold and silver from the former, otherwise they will gather in places such as Xuanhuan Mountain and take refuge in the 2 palace monarchs. Because Zhang Yujiao was born in the Zhang family in Tianqiao County, he knew more about the dark inside story than Jin Luo, such as the ghosts and monsters who took refuge in Xuanhuan Mountain. Through the secret operation and matchmaking of the 2 Shanjunfu, one by one became a place in several countries. As long as you give enough money to the gods, you can get the title of the imperial court of a certain country. Of course, the rank of the landscape genealogy will be very low, only on the supplementary book of the national landscape officialdom, and definitely not in the academy record. The file is somewhat similar to the white book status of a county magistrate, and it does not account for the number of places in the imperial court system. For example, Palace Master Bai, who is a ghost, probably wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to attend the wedding banquet to give a sum of money to hug the thigh of Xuanhuan Mountain and improve the situation of any county god. Therefore, the Xuanhuan Mountain in front of him was ridiculed in private by the old Mr. Hong. It's really the officials on the mountain of Shugua Lili Tu Yamen. As the national teacher of Qingxing Kingdom, why didn't Qing Qian go with Zhang clan of Tianqiao County, who had a good relationship last time? It wasn't because of the 3-way seal that the Qingxing Emperor had a handle on Xuanhuan Mountain. Jean Louis remembered something and said curiously, "Rainfoot, you talked about the Yunxiao dynasty earlier and wanted to smash the 6 stone monuments in the country, but then there was no text. Why? Didn't they all say that Chuiyu was dead?" The Dali Song clan returned to the north of Dadu according to the agreement. The Dali dynasty is now unable to control the internal affairs of the countries in the south. Isn't it annoying to keep those few stone tablets on the top of the mountain? The local court and the mountain immortal master, you definitely don't want to keep the stone tablet. The Yunxiao dynasty is worried about Dali Song's guilt. But now the Confucian temple has strict rules, no matter how powerful Dali's iron cavalry is, he can't go south again, right? She has been cultivating in the mountains since she was a child. First, she was young, and secondly, the Jin K sect had strict rules, and the direct disciples of the 5 realms were not allowed to know too much about the world outside the mountains. Therefore, I have only heard about the tragic war that the Wild Demon clan fought all the way to Dadu and Dallas capital, and this time I went out with a few brothers and sisters to experience it, so I heard some deeds. She sneaked out of the capital and walked with Zhang Yujiao. Through the dialogue with this young sword immortal, she had seen a lot of real mountain events, mountaintop events, and even some heavenly events. After reporting for many years, what she knew was only fragmentary news, not to mention that she did not dare to buy Shanshuidi newspapers privately at Xianxia or in without master's permission. According to Zhang Yujiao, including the Yunxiao dynasty in the past few years, the countries in the south were eager to move, and there were signs of wanting to destroy the stone monument, but it quickly subsided, the thunder was heavy and the rain was small, inexplicably there was no text. Zhang Ye's feet showed a dazed look, took a deep breath and said, "It is said that it is because one of Cui Ye's junior brothers, a sword cultivator, returned to the Haoran world alive some time ago. It is not a disrespect to directly call Cui Yu, the national master of Dali, on the mountain, especially among the younger monks, but rather a rather odd kind of respect." Jin Lu wondered, didn't Cui Yu betray the line of Wenxing long ago? Does he still have a junior brother? Zhang Yujiao smiled and said, "Who said no?" The golden thread became more and more strange. Besides, just a sword cultivator can shock Banzhou? Could it be a great sword immortal like Wei and Jin of Fengshua Temple? Zhang Yujiao was silent for a moment. In terms of realm and merit, I don't deserve to give this person shoes. Jin Luo was stunned. Zhang Yujiao smiled and said, "Of course, even if I am fortunate enough to meet this person, I will not carry his shoes for him." Jin Lui wanted to ask more about this person, but Zhang Yujiao obviously didn't want to say more about this sword cultivator, so he left it alone. Walking out of the foot of Pomo Peak, Zhang Yujiao said, "It can be confirmed that the boy with the sword on his back is not a 3-level, but a 4-level martial artist." Jin Lu stunned, "Young and promising, you can be considered a martial arts genius. No wonder he dares to walk alone in the Xuanhuan mountains. A cheer-refining warrior who is less than 20 years old is very rare. If he reaches the age of Jiazi, he can enter the 6th realm, and on the rivers and lakes within a country, he can call the wind and call the rain and become an emperor. The general's guest of honor. A pure martial artist is not a chi trainer who has a high aptitude for cultivation and a state of shattering realm. The most important thing is to climb the martial arts with a steady approach. The Jin K faction has a grandmaster who is respected by the masters. For border bottlenecks? At the end, Palace Master Bai was giving some gossip to the boy. Emperor Lu of Qingxing country, when today's sun, in the eyes of the monks on the mountain, is actually a whiteboard emperor. Seeing the young man's expression of wanting to ask but being reluctant to ask, Bai Mao explained with a smile. The so-called Baiban emperor means that he has lost the most important ones, which are commonly known as the imperial jade seal. It would be very troublesome if the seal was not broken and the jade seal was missing. If it was completely broken, it would be fine. It would be easy to re-engrave the seal. 1 sapphire jade and 1 piece of sandalwood wood. Among the total 12 treasures of the Qingxing emperor, the sapphire seal was used to decree the state of righteousness and seal the foreign barbarians. The Lu clan was not a big country. Long Nyo sandalwood jade seal, it is fair to say that His Majesty the Emperor can just replace it with other jade seals. The most troublesome thing is the gold twisted dragon new heir emperor seal, which is specially used to establish the crown prince. So now the green seal, the crown prince of Xinghua, who is about to be crowned, is neither the eldest son, nor the imperial seal, so it is not a normal name. Otherwise, why have you ever heard of a crown prince's crown ceremony and need to invite someone to watch the ceremony? Oh, what a joke. However, there is news that the Emperor Lu of the Qingxing kingdom had at first begged his grandfather to tell his grandmother in order to have enough weight for the ceremony. Took a lot of time and effort. Except for the Minister of Rights and Shirlang, the other 5 high-ranking officials and honorable people were sent out. As long as any famous sect on the mountain is willing to go to the capital, they will give money. I just don't know that there is no movement suddenly, and there are many immortal mansions that are pretentious, so forget it if they don't come. The officials who bowed down to the immortal masters as grandsons, all returned to the capital. Only a little bit of wind was revealed, as if the Emperor Lu had invited a big man. As for the specific big man, God knows, it can't be the gods or the sect. The members of the Zushi Hall of Xingyang Mountain are here. I guess it is still a false shot to give myself a step down. In the end, it is still a few friends on the mountain invited by the owner of the Zhang family in Tianqiao County, at most 3 or 5 Jindan Earth Immortals, to help support the scene, or else please move a nascent soul. The young man nodded suddenly and said, "So that's the case. Why, the seals of King Xinguo were succeeded by Xuanhuan Mountain." "I guessed it for you." Bai Mao nodded, raised his hand and shook his sleeve. "You didn't know we have a famous nickname here?" "How to say?" Little Shujian Lake. What's the matter? You kid haven't even heard of Shujian Lake? Just heard. Bai Mao was so choked that he had to ask another question. Should the True Realm sect know? The young man shook his head. Bai Mao will be suspicious, then the sect master Lu and the true monarch Zhejiang the immortal Lu must have heard of it, right? Even if you have never heard that the last sect is the True Realm sect of Nadong Yezhou Yuguizang, these two famous xianxia Yeshio who are in Aquarius should have heard of some of their deeds. As a result, the boy asked a question that made Bai Mao almost mad. This true monarch Zhejiang has become the suzerain? You still know that not everyone can be the head of a sect? Bai Mao turned to look at the young man who was holding the sauce meat in one hand while chewing slowly, smiled angrily, and then explained patiently, "They are all just Lu, they are not one person, a fairyland. Our treasure bottle, the first person in the history of the continent, Xianxia Yeshio, who took the lead in entering the Jade Realm and the Immortal Realm, is really a person who can't be more powerful than the sky. As for that true monarch Zhejiang, he is also an extremely powerful immortal. I heard that this old immortal's water technique is so high that it is the best in the whole continent. Cheng Qian's water technique of Qingxing Kingdom is already powerful enough, right? This true monarch Zhejiang is not enough to see, this is what Qing Qian himself said. And this Lu Zhejiang is now the chief worshipper of the True Realm sect, Jade Pure Realm, where the dojo is in a feng shui treasure land called Xianxia Island. I heard that he used to be the co-owner of Shujian Lake for a while in the early years. What kind of place do you think Shujian Lake is? Before the True Realm sect took over, it was called real lawlessness. Every day they would kill practitioners who died. I have to worry about whether I will die suddenly. Xuanhuan Mountain is nothing compared to Shujian Lake. Speaking of which, Bai Mao was complacent. Damn, he only spent money through a few snows not long ago, and only then did he know that there was a saying, upper 5 realms, above the earth immortal. I originally thought that the so-called land gods were the ultimate cultivators of qi practitioners. The boy asked, in this book Jane Lake, besides sect master Lu and Jinju and Zhejiang, who else do you know about the old gods? Bai Mao choked for a moment. Indeed, it's not that he is well informed, it's just that the two old immortals of Shujian Lake are too famous. As long as they are qi trainers who go down the mountain and walk through the Xinjia ferry, no one knows who they are. In addition, asking him to name a few masters from Yishio's background really stumped Palace Master Bai. Bai Mao hesitated for a moment. I really know a master of Taoism, the leader of the Five Islands sect. It is said to be a ghost immortal, surnamed Zheng Young. Aptitude and fortune are rare, even in the Shujian Lake where the monks gathered, is also a talented person who can be counted in the sky. When he was young, he could practice several Dao rectification methods at the same time, and his future achievements in the Dao can be imagined. The young man smiled and said, 5 Islands School? The name is really sloppy. It occupied 5 islands in Shujian Lake? After the expansion of the site, there will be a few more islands, what should I do? Bai Mao stared, be careful. The Wu Dao faction, under the eyes of the True Realm sect, can pull up a sect flag. How is it that these ant characters can make fun of them casually? What's more, Bai Mao is quite yearning for the 5 Islands sect. After all, it is a mountain where ghosts gather, and he always thinks about what he would do if he cultivated there. It's just that Xuanhuan Mountain and Shujian Lake are separated by mountains and rivers, and there are countless Shanshuixian Mansion and Qinghuang temples at all levels along the way. How could he, a ghost from the lower 5 realms, reach the Wudao school smoothly and meet the Zheng Guixian? Probably because of the Wudao faction. The umbrella girl in front deliberately slowed down her pace and finally walked side by side with them. A willow leaf appeared on her shoulders again. Just now, I accidentally heard the conversation between the two of you. Now, are you just talking about Shu Jianhu and the 5 Island sect Zheng Xianxia? Bai Mao laughed and said, anyway, they are all people from the horizon who have never been in contact with each other in their entire lives. When they have nothing to do, this official will show off some landscape knowledge with Brother Qin casually. She hesitated and asked, Palace Master Bai also wants to try his luck at the Wudao school? The sword-backed boy wondered, also? She twisted the oil paper umbrella and sighed softly, it's such a huge treasure continent, it's rare to have a place where ghosts don't have to worry about the precariousness of the night. How can you not be fascinated by it? The boy carrying the sword said, it's said that the tree moves the dead and the people live. If Miss Lu really wants to do this, she can really try her luck at the Wudao faction. It's better than hanging out here. Maybe one day she will be joined by the imperial troops and horses. The immortal master on the mountain was wiped out. Bai Mao coughed, don't say such bad words. She didn't mind, if you're a ghost, you're still afraid of bad luck. The young man raised his hand, made a mental calculation, and nodded to himself. Miss Lu, I calculated a hexagram based on your surname. Going to the Wudao school will make a big difference. The headless female ghost raised her hand and covered her mouth with a coquettish smile. Young Master Chen, my surname is not Lu, and the surname Lu and the love of sacrifice are all rumors from outsiders. Bai Mao suppressed a smile. The young man withdrew his hand silently and continued to eat the sauced pork. After eating the last piece, he tucked the oiled paper into a ball and put it in his sleeve. He clapped his hands, thinking that the embarrassment he had just felt had disappeared with the wind, and asked, Palace Master Bai Lu, girl, the previous kind of talisman mount looks both bright and practical. Where can you buy it, and after you get it, will the daily expenses be big? Bai Mao said, it's not an ordinary thing, it's very expensive. It is said that this kind of thing can be regarded as a personal talisman boat, and the small ferry that is a little far away may not be sold. Even the big xianxia ferry has to take luck. There are no good things, even if you have money you may not be able to buy them. As for people like us, just take a look. The young man said, I just asked the talisman, how much money I need to ride 1,000 miles. Bai Mao shook his head and said, how do you know such secrets? The umbrella girl said with a smile, if you have never encountered an oncoming gale, you don't need to go against the wind for a long time, and you will spend about 10 snows in the wind for thousands of miles. Bai Mao was speechless and I was obedient. This is really expensive. It is too expensive to be so generous. After realizing it, Bai Mao asked, why don't you ask the price of a piece of talisman paper? The young man sneered, fool, I only have a few dollars in my pocket, can I afford it? Then you also ask about daily expenses? You're not happy to pick up a talisman mount folded into paper on the side of the road? Bai Mao endured. The female ghost asked, young Master Chen, can you ask me? You are a pure martial artist. The sword-backed boy was so frank that he nodded and said, to tell the truth, the young man started to practice martial arts, because his aptitude is good and he has the guidance of a master, so he is proficient in 18 martial arts. Therefore, in recent years, the main energy is still on the practice of superior swordsmanship, thinking about how to create a few brilliant swordsmanship, to be with a peer who is both a hard worker and a friend, so as to distinguish the winner and loser, and at the same time learn thunder technique and the formation method, but it can only be said that it is a small achievement in the Taoism and has not yet entered the room. Generally speaking, I do not easily shake these with outsiders. It is a taboo to make deep conversations, not to mention I am afraid that I will scare others if I am not careful. Palace Master looks at Mian Shan, and Miss Lu is a kind-hearted person, so it doesn't matter. Bai Mao couldn't help but tease, how old are you now, 14-5? How did you come to juvenile martial arts? Isn't young martial arts better? As for Lei Fa, Palace Master Bai didn't even want to ask. He was used to it. This strawshoe boy surnamed Chen would come when he liked it. The female ghost also smiled and said nothing. She just wondered in her heart, if this young man is really a pure martial artist in the chi refining realm, why is he so introverted that even she and Bai Mao could not notice it at all? This is probably a realm that only martial masters in the 3 realms of refining gods have? She once was in the town at the foot of the mountain, and was fortunate enough to see a warrior with a golden body. Walking in the night, even if she didn't deliberately burst into fistful energy, to a ghost like her, it was like a round of scorching sun. Get off the ground. Teach her not to look directly. So much so that all the towns that were mixed with fish and dragons avoided their edge and closed their doors, and no one dared to say a word of cruelty. But when this person entered a wine shop and asked for a bowl of wine to drink, the old man's scorching sun-like appearance of a martial artist disappeared instantly, and he became no different from the ordinary masters in the market. The sword-backed youth sneered, pedant and sour Mr. Dong Rong, I only know how to talk to me here. I met Zhang Jianxian in Tianqiao County before, but I didn't see you say a word. Bai Mao couldn't bear it anymore and said angrily, Chen Ren. And I, Bodhisattva, still has 3 points of anger. Stop saying some weird things to this official. It's endless. Are you really afraid that this official will turn against you? The young man said solemnly, you may not be a good official, but you are a good person. Now you can only be regarded as a good ghost. Besides, we are still brothers from each other. How can you not hear a few words that are offensive to your ears? Cultivation is also cultivation. Living and eating and drinking are all cultivation. Taoist monks, whether a Taoist heart is tough, how important is it not? If I only talked about this, Bai Mao would really listen. The problem is that this guy has a few words from the bottom of his heart. I am a pure martial artist, so naturally I don't need to practice like this. all the time is punching and kicking, so don't talk to me. I say some weird things that come and go, otherwise I will hurt the friendship of my brothers. Those of us who practice martial arts, especially those who practice martial arts from other schools, have a bad temper. The female ghost holding the umbrella looked pitiful and looked at Palace Master Bai. She leisurely accelerated her pace, her feet did not touch the ground and she drifted away. The young man saw that Palace Master Bai had been persuaded by his own reasoning, nodded, said something that a child could be taught, and then asked casually, "What kind of Taoist method is the head of the Jianghu sect? Do you think Yupujing is roadside Chinese cabbage?" Bai Mao looked helpless, carefully glanced at the golden thread in front of him and said in a low voice, "But Chengren, I heard that there is indeed a Taoist root of jade, and the Xuanhuan mountains say that this powerful Taoist person has reached the mysterious realm of separating the way and dispersing the body. The yang sits in a small world, transforms at will, and the yin travels thousands of miles away. There are many mountains and rivers in the surrounding countries, and there are countless strange people and scholars. Only the ancestors of the Zhang family in Tianqiao County and Zhao Fujian of Xuanhuan Mountain can be equal to them. Especially the one-handed five-element gold master's unique thunder technique, which is mysterious, and its power is unimaginable." The young man sneered and said, "There is nothing mysterious about the way of cultivating Lei Fa in this world, aside from the secret teaching of the five thunders of Longhu Mountain. It's just that if there is a timely rain in the body, each of the internal organs will condense into a cloud, which will be divided after that. Out of the three schools, the inferior method, the eyes are itchy and the eyes twinkle like electric light, the three dantian are connected in a line, affecting the internal organs, and the sudden rumbling makes thunder. The middle method is nothing more than the mutual stimulation of yin and yang, such as refining 3. The hanging mirror on the handle, different from Taoist formulas, becomes a thunder letter, which is used to reflect the sun and moonlight. It shows the heavenly secrets in the cave of the Dan room like the words on the wall, which can be clearly seen. As for the superior method, it is not difficult to say, practice transforming into a single body to achieve the great world. Everywhere in the caves are thunder pools, mastering yin and yang creation, grasping the heaven and earth cardinals, summoning spirits to become officials and making thunder. Bai Mao pretended to agree and turned his head to give a thumbs up to the sword-backed boy. It would be a pity not to be a storyteller under an overpass, or to set up a roadside stall. The umbrella girl was thoughtful, but she held back and did not turn around. Zhang Yujiao frowned slightly and asked in his heart, "Jinlu, does this person have a basis for explaining the 3 types of thunder methods on the mountain? Bullshit? Big and unworthy?" Jinlu smiled and said, "Anyway, it's only the content that he downgraded to the inferior method, and it's a little bit related to the orthodoxy of Lei Fa. If a chi practitioner has really cultivated to a certain level, there will be a stage where the eyes are itchy, and then the internal organs are like rain. As for what makes a mirror, the text of Lei Han appears on the inner wall of the cave. I have never heard of it, at least our Jianghu faction is in the vein of Lei Fa, there is definitely no such statement." Bai Mao asked with a smile, "Young Master Qin, where did you learn this wonderful saying?" The young man crossed his arms around his chest and walked like a fly and said, "That's what it says in the book." Jean Louis, who was separated by a mile from the boy, couldn't help laughing. Originally, she planned to return to the Qingxing Kingdom's capital, so she asked the senior sister who was already in the cave. In fact, there is no road to go to Xuanhuan Mountain. In the past, the official roads and country roads have long been buried by weeds. There are many dead trees along the way and there are occasionally broken walls. The appearance of the village in the past can be vaguely seen. Zhang Yu didn't even bother to take a look at the spirits and ghosts who participated in the marriage ceremony in Xuanhuan Mountain, so the other party took the initiative to detour, and only dared to stay far away, whispering in the dark, when the pair of young girls who looked like golden boys and girls, really garish. More importantly, the burly man behind the girl is like a golden signboard that clearly reveals his identity. Cheng Qian's Jianghu faction of Qingxing Kingdom, even in this Xuanhuan Mountain area, is still equivalent to a gold medal for avoiding death. Of course, the premise is that the genealogical master of the Jianghu faction, don't go too far here, and randomly kill those who have roots and have incense with the 2 mountain palaces. Bai Mao asked curiously, "Brother Qin, can you tell me the truth, what are you doing here?" "While practicing martial arts and refining swords, I wandered the rivers and lakes, and collected some bronze coins by the way so that I could save a copper coin sword that can slay demons and eliminate demons. In the capital of Qingxing Kingdom, I heard that there are many sneaky spirits here, so I wanted to come here. While honing what I have learned is mixed and I have a place to use it. If I really confess here, I can only blame myself for not being good at learning, and I can't blame anyone." The young man raised his hand and pointed to the scabbard. "Have you seen it? The best scabbard in the world must have a superior multiplication sword to be considered a good match. Although there is no real magic sword in the scabbard's Peiran sword energy is full and ready to come out. Once the sword is officially launched against the enemy, the sword light TSK is terrifying. Brother Bai, you're not an outsider, so I'll tell you the truth. Someone Qin wants to open up a smooth path for everyone in the world of swordsmanship." Bai Mao was really fed up with this brainless little bastard, and took out a piece of snow from his sleeve to spend money. "Qinren, find a gentleman and take care of it. Really listen to Big Brother Bai's advice." The straw shoe boy snorted, and he really reached out and took the snow money. Bai Mao immediately regretted it. How could he talk about this fellow? He really pretended not to hear what he meant, so he grabbed the boy's fist with his backhand and couldn't stand it. "Good people have good rewards, Brother Bai, let go. It's not worth it to lose a heroic spirit for such a small amount of money. Brother Qin, what kind of background do I come from? You have long seen it through the copper coins in Pomo Peak. Is really not a good person, a hero or anything. Return the money to me and I will call you brother in the future." At this moment, not far from the town at the foot of the mountain, a cavalry army suddenly appeared. There were only a few cavalry troops. Zhang Yujiao showed a solemn expression for the first time, slowed down his pace and condensed the spiritual energy in his eyes through a natal object, making the young sword immortal temporarily obtain a kind of breath technique. Jin Luo didn't care much at first, but when she saw Zhang Yujiao holding her breath beside her, she realized that the matter was not simple, and immediately put her fingers together, silently recited the Taoist formula, and wiped it in front of her eyes. In an instant, she was horrified to discover that the light cavalry was unusual. The female umbrella ghost walking behind them stopped early and lowered the oil paper umbrella slightly to cover more of her figure. Because Bai Mao is also a ghost, it can see the visions that chi practitioners in the world can only see if they need all kinds of supernatural powers and the blessing of secret techniques. In ancient battlefield sites, there are often some kind of heroic spirits in armor. Because of a certain obsession, they roam the world. If they hold weapons, there will be a strange scene of golden light from the tip of the spear, and fire from the sky at the end of the spear. That is, some history books. The so-called halberd front has fire, and it looks like a hanging candle. It's just that this kind of scene is not something that all ghosts and ghosts can have. It is extremely rare and uncommon. It is precisely because it is rare that it makes people jealous. The sword-backed boy asked, "This is?" Bai Mao, who had been silent for a long time, hurriedly shook his head, put his finger against his lips and signaled to stop speaking. "Don't make a sound at this time." Seeing that the young man was about to speak, Bai Mao hurriedly stretched out his hand and grabbed the young man's arm. When the dozen or so cavalry quickly disappeared into the darkness ahead, the flames shone, the line opened and gradually submerged into the small town at the foot of the mountain. Bai Mao dared to breathe, and subconsciously wiped his forehead, which was not sweating at all. The young man asked, "Is it a fine cavalry under the command of the Xuanhuan mountain mansion?" Bai Mao shook his head and said strangely, "Don't even think about it. How can Xuanhuan mountain have the ability to manage the army?" Bai Mao obviously knew the true identity of the scout Jingqi, but he never mentioned it. Life and death are the same, spring and summer and autumn and winter, all on horseback. Bai Mao changed the topic and pretended to be relaxed. "I'm going to enter the town soon. Remember to follow me. Don't wander around. If you go astray, you will hit the wall with ghosts. The road is full of miasma, and the white fog is boundless, twisting and turning, dangerous and dangerous." Entering a small town with colorful lights, at the end of the main street, it is connected with the sacred way of Xuanhuan mountain. There is an attic on the side of the road, and there is an ancient tree with luxuriant branches and red paper beside the building. The ghostly land is full of gloom, as if the moonlight is cold. Rows of bright red lanterns hung on both sides of the street, and many shops had their doors open, shadowing the shadows, but there was almost no sound. The umbrella girl seemed to be very familiar with the town. She turned around, waved goodbye to Bai Mao and the boy, then walked into an alley and disappeared without a trace. Bai Mao told the young man the general origin of the shops on both sides with his heart, how and why he could not provoke him. He just walked to one place. There were several charming women with thin dresses beckoning on the second floor, and the palace master Bai slowed down and asked the young man beside him if he could drink. Drinking flower wine. They also said that there is nothing to fear here, the business is fair, they don't eat people, they only eat money, they only need 2 snows to spend money to drink a pot of wine. As for how long a pot of wine can be drunk, it depends on their own. That's it. Palace Master Bai immediately smiled, but it could be considered a cannibal, otherwise how could it be called a hero mound? The young man just crossed his arms around his chest without looking sideways. He sneered, "Yo, Palace Master Bai got excited when he talked about this?" Bai Mao had to give up. In the building at the end of the street, the first floor can drink, the lights are brilliant, bright as day, and it is full of people who are ready to climb the mountain and participate in the recruitment. Bai Mao just spent a piece of snow money, asked for a corner seat in the restaurant lobby, told Qinren to sit down, don't take the initiative to cause trouble, whoever came to the door just reported his name, and Bai Mao himself run to deliver the congratulations. Below the archway at the foot of the mountain, there is a table covered with red silk and satin. There is an old man in brocade clothes who looks like a manager, who is calling his name loudly, and a bookkeeper is responsible for writing the gift list. Half a caddy of thunder fire burns red apricots, and a water vein refines Biden. Mrs. Pipa of Tianlai Cave, send 1 lei xing and 1 water pill to xianxia. The feather clothes are often hazy, and the mink is fishing in the dragon pool. Immortal Heilung, here we are. 1 red envelope and 18 snow money. The old man named Black Dragon Immortal glared, "Ha!" The steward immediately sneered and said, "I reported an error, it's 80. The young accountant, who had already written 18 coins, raised his head with an embarrassed look on his face, and was slapped on the head by the old steward. Will it be written off and rewritten again? When the master Xianjun, who was watching the sea, climbed the mountain, the steward was still scolding the accountant. Will you eat fish maw? The demon king lives on the ape road, and his fists and feet are unparalleled. Tang Kuan, the great master of Tang, come to the door tonight to congratulate, 1 box of gold and 2 boxes of jewelry. Withered Bones turned to be the mansion master. He was a high-ranking official before his death. Wedges Eiling's innocent mansion was superfluous master, 50 pieces of snow money, ancient ink, a few ingots. Bai Mao immediately bowed his head and bowed his waist, rubbed his hands together and whispered with a smile, "Steward you, this set of ancient ink is made by the imperial government and is worth a little money." The steward nodded and reminded the young accountant, "Add the word imperial control to Palace Master Bai." A personal talisman boat like a grasshopper boat, broke through the air and landed in an instant. A burly and strong man came with 2 mates. One of them gathered the talisman boat with a pinch, and the strong man stretched out the size of a fan. He borrowed the talisman boat with his palm and pushed away the impediment that was in the way. As expected of a martial artist of the 6 realms, he directly threw the impregnated 2 feet away. He didn't talk nonsense with the steward of Xuanhuan Mountain. He just took the 2 maids and went straight to the mountain. To ask him to pay out is to wait for the rooster to lay his eggs. The old steward was hesitant to say anything, but let it go after thinking about it. This owl claims to be unconvinced by no one in this life, and only admires the gentleman Wei Shanjun of Beiyue. Seeing the strong man hugging the 2 mother-in-law and walking far away, the steward turned his head and snorted, "What Ejo Mountain Lord, what a majestic god, is something like you qualified to admire?" Bai Mao returned to the restaurant and found that the figure of the sword-carrying boy had disappeared. He smiled bitterly, drank wine and then called the shop assistant to check out, but he was told that he had already paid. In the Shinto way in the mountains, Zhao and Yu, the 2 Taoist masters, appeared together, as if they were going to welcome the distinguished guests in person at the gate of the mountain. On the other side of Splashing Mo Peak, 2 young men fell here in the wind. One was wearing sackcloth with his feet on climbing sandals, and the other was wearing a black-blue python suit. Because his surname is Fu, he is from the old Dragon City, and he is still a chi trainer who can participate in the discussion of the ancestral hall. The latter shook his head with a face full of indifference. He squinted and looked into the distance as soon as he said it. A dazzling sword light accompanied by a multicolored firefly came in a blink of an eye. It was a solemn-faced young man with a Dao crown. He shook his sleeves and condensed a splendid cloud into the pattern of the robe and talisman on his body. Woman as she stood, the long sword swept into her back sheath. The young man in linen had a bright smile, and he took the initiative to say, "Xuanhuan Mountain U formation, see the process, real person Miss Kaichin." Fu Qi clasped his fist and smiled, "Old Dragon City Fu Qi si Qingguosher Zhang Jianxian." Zhang Kaichin nodded with a smile. Qing Qian asked, "What is the relationship between Fu Nanhua and you?" Fu Qi smiled and replied, "If the generation is calculated according to the family tree, I can call him uncle." If I meet him outside, I can only call the city owner, otherwise the uncle will definitely not be willing to pay attention to me. At the gate of the mountain, the two palace lords and Taoist companions handed over to a distinguished guest at the same time. Among them, Zhao Fujuan and the cultivator laughed happily. "Brother Qinju, I have finally waited for you," Yu Fujun asked in a heartfelt voice. "Young Daoist Qin, didn't Tian Xianxia come together? As for the masters of Qinju and Tianhujuan, they are absolutely not allowed to move. In fact, even this Tian Xianxia is difficult to invite." Sure enough, Qinju shook his head and said, "Sister Tian needs to retreat in the near future." A young man with a sword on his back sat on top of a well in a small town, his arms wrapped around his sleeves. He saw the scrivener Huchuang, who came in a hurry and asked with a smile, "Palace Master Bai isn't drinking over there, why are you wandering around?" Bai Mao breathed a sigh of relief, stretched out his finger and clicked on the guy who was really wandering around. He laughed angrily. "I said don't walk around, what are you doing here?" The boy jumped down from the mouth of the well, touched the ground gently with a pair of straw sandals and said with a smile, "Sit in the well and watch the sky, and take a good look at what the world looked like in my eyes 30 years ago." Bai Mao listened to it like a cloud and always felt that this young ranger surnamed Chen was very spiritual, so he didn't think much about it and couldn't help complaining, "Do you really think this is an ordinary town? Walk around, leave quickly, it's about to climb the mountain, let's take you out of the town first, this kind of right and wrong place hiding dragons and crouching tigers shouldn't stay for a long time." The sword-backed boy smiled and said, "What hidden dragon and crouching tiger is nothing compared to my hometown and small town. It's far worse." Bai Mao grabbed the young man's arm and dragged him out of the alley without any explanation, and said with a smile, "Your hometown is the town of Huaihuang County in Lizidangshan?" No matter how ignorant Palace Master Bai was, he knew that in that palm-sized place, there were many cultivating geniuses who could drown him by spitting, and the key point was that each one was younger than the other. The young man was shocked. "Brother Bai, you can guess this but you can't hide it. He is also an expert who can count." "It doesn't matter, did you think that Miss Lu was not named Lu? The sky counts as one miss, so that's right." "It's alright, don't talk nonsense, send your kid out of the town, the official will go up the mountain and we will part ways." "Brother Bai, what do you think, my surname is Qin and the surname Qin in Liju Dongtian is also surname Qin, don't you have to guess?" Bai Mao was so happy that he always grabbed the opponent's arm, slapped the boy directly on the head and scolded with a smile, "Good guy, this can climb relatives. According to what you said, my surname is Bai. In the legend, the most proud of the world, what is the relationship? Palace Master Bai, gentleman speaks and does not do anything. Let your kid have a little memory." Bai Mao slapped it again, but this time it was blocked by the boy reaching out. Bai Mao let go of the other's arm, took out a long-cherished Huangshi talisman from his sleeve and said in a low voice, "Let's go out of the town, hurry up, someone just said that they saw the direction of Pomo Peak." There was movement and it was not small. Among them there was a sword light. It is very likely that the female sword fairy from the Zhang family in Tianchao County has arrived. Take it easy, the outside world says she has a bad temper. Great, the sword is very ruthless. If it is her, Xuanhuan Mountain will definitely not sit idly by, so you'd better detour. This barrier-breaking talisman should be regarded as a parting gift. Damn, my friend, don't meet again. When they reached the border of the town, the boy with the sword backed away and said with a smile, "Brother Bai, to be honest, I'm friends with the female sword immortal as well as that Qinju who just climbed the mountain. If you see me, you really have to find a gentleman. Take a look at your knees. Believe it or not, we're gone, there are still a few small things to deal with. In short, when you get to the mountain, if something happens you can shout and either Zhang Kaiqin or Shujian Lakes Qinju, just do it. Tell them, you know a man surnamed Qin who wears straw sandals, carries a sword on his back, loves to drink wine, met you by chance, hit it off, and made an appointment to have a drink in the capital of Qingxing Kingdom in the middle of this year." The crane cloak scribe smiled and nodded. There are many pleasant things in life, returning home, drinking fine wine, seeing 100 flowers blooming, playing games in the shade of pine trees, waiting for the full moon in the mid-autumn festival, listening to the wind, and reading behind closed doors on a snowy night. Tonight, I have to add another young man to brag that he is Liju Dong Tian Chin Pingon. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.